Welcome to another exciting episode on Ben 10 What If. Today, we're exploring a captivating tale called What If Ben 10 Was in My Hero Academia, Ben 10 vs. All for One. Before we begin, if you enjoy our content, please support us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps more than you know. And now, the story awaits. Chapter 1, Strange New World. Ben Tennyson slammed into the side of a building, dust and debris flying everywhere as Humongousaur's massive form created a crater in the concrete. "Okay, Dr. Onimo," he growled, pushing himself up. "Now you're really starting to tick me off." Across the street, the mad scientist cackled from atop his latest creation, a mutated rhinoceros the size of a semi-truck with bizarre mechanical components jutting from its hide. "Your pitiful transformations are no match for my genius, Ben Tennyson," Onimo shouted, adjusting dials on a new device strapped to his forearm. "This dimensional fluctuator will revolutionize my work. No longer limited to Earth's genetic material." Ben rolled his massive dinosaur shoulders. Yeah. I've heard this speech before." He charged forward, each footstep cracking the asphalt. "How about less talking, more getting your butt kicked?" The rhinoceros lowered its horn, now glowing with an unnatural energy, and charged to meet him. At the last second, Ben slapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. "Ghost freak." The rhinoceros passed harmlessly through his new spectral form. Ben laughed, his eerie voice echoing. "Too slow. Impossible." Onimo frantically twisted dials on his device. "My calculations were perfect." The dimensional energy should. The device on Onimo's arm sparked violently. A pulsing wave of energy erupted outward, catching both Onimo and Ben in its radius. "What did you do?" Ben shouted as reality itself seemed to warp around them. The street, buildings, even the air itself twisted like a funhouse mirror. "It's destabilizing." Onimo's words cut off as a blinding flash enveloped them both. Ben felt like he was being pulled apart and compressed simultaneously. The Omnitrix sparked wildly on his chest, cycling rapidly through alien forms before everything went black. Ben woke with a splitting headache, sprawled on his back on unfamiliar pavement. The Omnitrix had reverted him to human form while he was unconscious. "Ugh, that's the last time I let Onimo monologue," he muttered, sitting up slowly and taking stock of his surroundings. This definitely wasn't Bellwood. The architecture looked Japanese. People walked past, some glancing curiously at him. Strangely, many had unusual physical features, horns, unusual skin colors, even tails. "Either I've been out way too long and everyone got really into cosplay," Ben said to himself, "or Onimo's machine did something way worse than he planned." A commotion erupted down the street. Screams and the sound of breaking glass. Ben's hero instincts kicked in immediately. He sprinted toward the chaos, pushing through a crowd of fleeing civilians. "Help! Someone help us!" a woman shouted as a grotesque figure smashed through a storefront window. The villain resembled a humanoid lizard, scales covering his body and a powerful tail whipping behind him. He clutched a bag of what looked like stolen merchandise. "Police and heroes are still responding to the incident in the shopping district," someone in the crowd yelled. "There's no one nearby." Ben grinned, raising his wrist. "That's what you think." He activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his aliens. "All right, let's try this one." A flash of green light engulfed him, drawing gasps from the gathered crowd. Where a teenage boy had stood moments before, now towered a hulking crystalline figure. Diamond Head. Ben's voice resonated with a deeper tone. He stepped forward, crystal shards forming around his fists. "Hey Lizard Face. How about you drop the loot and surrender before this gets ugly?" The lizard villain hissed, dropping his bag and extending clawed hands. "Another hero? Your crystal quirk doesn't scare me." Ben didn't have time to puzzle over the quirk comment before the villain launched himself forward with surprising speed. Sharp claws scraped against Diamond Head's crystalline body, creating sparks but no damage. My turn. Ben grabbed the villain's arm and spun him around, hurling him into an empty bus stop. The structure crumpled under the impact. The villain staggered to his feet, eyes wide with shock. What the? You should have at least some scratches. Diamond hard skin, buddy. Comes with the name. Ben formed his arm into a blade. Last chance to give up. Instead of surrendering, the lizard villain spat a glob of green acid that splattered across Ben's chest. It sizzled briefly before Diamond Head wiped it away, unharmed. Okay, fun's over. Ben stomped his foot, causing crystal shards to erupt from the ground in a wave. They encased the villain up to his neck, immobilizing him completely. That should hold you until the authorities arrive. The crowd that had been watching from a distance burst into applause. Ben turned, somewhat surprised by the reaction. Back home, people were used to alien heroes, but here they seemed genuinely amazed. That was incredible. What agency are you from? I don't recognize your costume. Are you a new pro hero? That crystal quirk is amazing. Before Ben could respond, a new voice cut through the crowd. Everyone please step back and give him space. A young man with glasses and remarkably straight posture pushed through, making elaborate hand gestures. Beside him, a girl with brown hair and pink cheeks looked at Ben with wide eyes. That was amazing. Your quirk is so cool, she exclaimed. Thanks, but it's not a, Ben started. I'm Tenya Ida, class representative of UA. High school class 1A, the boy with glasses interrupted. Your quirk activation was quite public, but given the circumstances, I believe it falls under justified usage for civilian protection. Ben opened his mouth to explain when the Omnitrix started beeping. Not now. A flash of red light replaced Diamond Head with Ben's human form, drawing gasps from everyone watching. Whoa! A transformation quirk, the girl exclaimed. I'm Achiko Uraraka, by the way. Ben sighed, scratching the back of his head. Look, it's not actually a quirk. He was interrupted again by the arrival of a man in a blue and white costume with engines protruding from his legs, followed by police officers. The villain has been apprehended, the engine-legged man announced, looking at the crystalline prison holding the lizard villain. Who is responsible for this impressive capture? Every bystander pointed at Ben. Him. He turned into a crystal man and took down the villain in seconds. The hero approached Ben with a curious expression. I don't recognize you, young man. Are you a licensed hero? Or perhaps a student? Not exactly, Ben replied, deciding honesty was his best approach. My name's Ben Tennyson. I'm not from around here. Look, this is going to sound crazy, but I think I'm from another dimension. 2 hours later, Ben sat in a spacious office within the imposing UA high school building. Across from him, a small creature that resembled a combination of dog, mouse, and bear sipped tea calmly while examining a tablet displaying footage of Ben's earlier fight. Fascinating, the creature, who had introduced himself as Principal Nizu, said. And you say this Omnitrix contains the DNA of various alien species from your dimension? Ben nodded. Yeah, it lets me transform into different aliens with different powers. I've been using it to fight bad guys back in my world for years. Also present in the room were several adults that Nizu had introduced as pro-heroes and teachers, Shota Aizawa, Eraserhead, Namuri Kayama, Midnight, and Toshinori Yagi, a gaunt blonde man who Ben was told used to be the hero All Might. I tried using my quirk on you earlier, Aizawa said, his tired eyes fixed on Ben. It had no effect. That suggests your transformations aren't quirk-based at all. That's what I've been trying to tell you, Ben replied. We don't have quirks where I come from. Just regular humans and the occasional alien visitor. Toshinori leaned forward, his sunken eyes intense. Young Tennyson, your appearance coincides with several unusual energy readings our support department detected earlier today. If what you're saying is true, we need to consider the possibility that others might have crossed over with you. Ben frowned. Dr. Onimo, the guy whose machine caused this, was right next to me when everything went crazy. If I'm here, there's a good chance he is too. Is this Dr. Onimo dangerous? Midnight asked. Totally, Ben replied. He's obsessed with genetic manipulation and creating mutant animals. Not the most stable guy. Nizu set his teacup down. Then we have two priorities, discovering how to return you to your dimension and locating this potential threat before he can cause harm in our world. In the meantime, Aizawa interjected, we need to decide what to do with you, Tennyson. I can help, Ben offered immediately. If Onimo's here, I know how he thinks. Plus, the Omnitrix gives me plenty of firepower to handle whatever he throws at us. The teachers exchanged glances, and Nizu nodded thoughtfully. We could offer you temporary accommodation here at UA while our support department works on understanding the dimensional anomaly, the principal suggested. In exchange, perhaps you could provide some insights to our hero students. Your experience with your transformations could be valuable. Like a guest lecturer? Ben asked, surprised. More like a temporary assistant, Aizawa clarified. No offense, but we don't know enough about you yet to give you full teaching responsibilities. Ben grinned. None taken. Back home, I'm still in high school myself. Toshinori smiled for the first time. Then perhaps you'll find some common ground with our students. Class 1A has already encountered two of their members, I believe. The glasses kid and the floating girl. Yeah, they seemed nice. Excellent, Nizu concluded. Then it's settled. Mr. Tennyson will stay at UA as our guest while we work on his dimensional problem and monitor for this Dr. Onimo. Aizawa, would you mind showing him to the guest quarters? As they left the office, Ben couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this world had in store. The next morning, Ben found himself standing beside Aizawa in front of Class 1A. 20 pairs of curious eyes stared back at him with expressions ranging from excitement to skepticism. This is Ben Tennyson, Aizawa introduced in his monotone voice. He'll be observing and occasionally assisting with hero training for the next few days. His quirk allows him to transform into various forms with different abilities. Treat him with respect. Ben waved awkwardly. Hey everyone. Looking forward to working with you all. A hand shot up immediately, the glasses kid from yesterday, Ida. Sir. May I ask what hero agency you're affiliated with? I'm more of an independent operator, Ben replied. Another hand, a girl with long dark hair in a ponytail. What's the limitation of your transformation quirk? Is it time-based or dependent on stamina? 10-minute time limit, usually, Ben answered. Though the Omnitrix recharges pretty quick these days. Omnitrix? Several students asked simultaneously. Ben held up his wrist, showing the watch-like device. This thing. It contains the DNA samples I use to transform. A blonde boy with a black lightning bolt in his hair jumped up. That's so cool. It's like having a support item built into your quirk. Enough questions, Aizawa cut in. We're doing combat training today. Tennyson will demonstrate some of his transformations so you can observe different fighting styles. Ground beta in 15 minutes. Don't be late. As the students filed out to change into their hero costumes, a green-haired boy approached Ben cautiously. Excuse me, Tennyson-san, he said politely. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk about your different transformations sometime. I keep notes on quirks, and yours seems fascinating. Ben smiled at the earnest student. Sure thing, Midoriya. And just call me Ben. The whole honorific thing isn't really necessary. Midoriya beamed. Thank you, Ben. Oh, and sorry about Bakugo, he gestured toward a spiky-haired blonde boy who was glaring at Ben from across the room. He can be a bit intense. I've dealt with intense before, Ben replied with a shrug. My cousin Gwen makes that guy look like a kitten. 15 minutes later, Ben stood at the center of a large training area designed to resemble a city street. The students gathered around in their colorful hero costumes, whispering excitedly. All right, Aizawa announced, Tennyson will demonstrate several of his transformations. Pay attention to the varying combat capabilities and how they might apply to different rescue and battle scenarios. Ben stepped forward, activating the Omnitrix. I've got aliens for pretty much any situation. Speed, he selected an icon, is always useful. He slammed down the dial, and a flash of green light revealed a blue-skinned, velociraptor-like alien with a black helmet and wheels for feet. XLR-8. Ben's new form announced, his visor snapping down. Watch this. In a blur of motion, Ben circled the entire training ground multiple times, creating a small whirlwind before skidding to a stop back where he started, all within seconds. Whoa, a pink-skinned girl with horns exclaimed. He's even faster than Ida. For strength, Ben slapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming again. This time, a massive four-armed red alien appeared. 4 arms. Ben flexed all 4 limbs and then slammed his fists into the ground, creating a shockwave that cracked the concrete. The transformations continued, with Ben demonstrating Heat Blast's fire powers, Wildmutt's tracking abilities, and several others. With each new form, the students grew more animated, calling out questions and observations. Is there a limit to how many forms you have? The ponytail girl, who Ben learned was named Momo Yayorozu, asked. I've got access to about 10 right now, Ben explained after reverting to human form. The Omnitrix has way more, but it likes to keep me guessing sometimes. It seems to choose forms based on what you need, Midoriya noted, scribbling furiously in a notebook. Is there conscious selection or does the device have some autonomous function? A bit of both, Ben replied. Sometimes it gives me exactly what I want, other times, not so much. Aizawa cleared his throat. For the practical portion, I want volunteers to spar against Tennyson in one of his forms. This will help you learn to adapt to unfamiliar opponent abilities. A hand shot up immediately. I'll fight him. The spiky-haired blonde, Bakugo, stepped forward with a menacing grin. Let's see if these transformations are actually good for anything. Ben raised an eyebrow. Sure thing, Explosion Boy. Any preferences for which alien you want to get beat by? Bakugo's eye twitched at the nickname. Use your strongest one. I want to crush you at your best. Several students murmured nervously, but Aizawa simply nodded. Keep it controlled, both of you. First to immobilize their opponent or force them out of bounds wins. Ben cycled through the Omnitrix, considering his options. Strongest isn't always best, but let's try this. He transformed in a flash of green light. Swamp fire. The plant-like alien flexed his fingers, small flames dancing between them. Ready when you are. Bakugo didn't wait for a formal start. He launched himself forward with explosions propelling him from his palms, moving faster than Ben expected. Die, he shouted, unleashing a massive blast directly at Ben's face. The explosion engulfed Swampfire completely, and several students gasped. When the smoke cleared, Ben's head was missing entirely. Did he kill him? The red-haired student named Kirishima exclaimed. But before panic could set in, vines stretched from Ben's neck, reforming his head entirely. That tickled, Swampfire said with a grin. My turn. He thrust his hands forward, sending a wave of vines erupting from the ground beneath Bakugo. The explosive student blasted himself into the air to avoid them, but Ben had anticipated this. He shot a stream of fire upward, forcing Bakugo to dodge mid-air. A plant that controls fire? What kind of stupid quirk is that? Bakugo shouted, landing in a crouch. It's not a quirk, it's alien biology, Ben replied. And I'm just getting started. The battle intensified as Bakugo unleashed increasingly powerful explosions, while Ben countered with regenerative abilities and combination attacks using both plants and fire. The students watched in awe as the two combatants tore up the training ground. "They're both so strong," Uraraka commented, eyes wide. "But their approaches are completely different," Todoroki, a boy with half-red, half-white hair observed. "Bakugo is all aggression, while Tennyson seems to be analyzing and countering." After several minutes of intense fighting, Ben saw his opening. As Bakugo prepared another massive explosion, Swampfire plunged his hands into the ground. Instantly, thick vines erupted beneath Bakugo, wrapping around his arms before he could detonate his next attack. "What the?" Bakugo struggled as more vines secured his legs and torso, lifting him off the ground. "I believe that counts as immobilized," Ben said, turning to Aizawa. The teacher nodded. "Tennyson wins." Ben released the vines, setting a fuming Bakugo back on his feet. The blonde immediately slapped the offered hand away. "This isn't over, plant freak," he growled before stalking off. "Sore loser, huh?" Ben commented as he transformed back to human form. "You have no idea," Kirishima replied with a sharp-toothed grin. "That was super manly though. The way you regenerated after taking that explosion head-on." The rest of the class gathered around Ben, peppering him with questions about his abilities and fighting style. Even the normally reserved Todoroki seemed interested. "Your control over multiple elements with a single transformation is impressive," he said quietly. "Did it take long to master?" "Years of practice," Ben admitted. "When I first got the Omnitrix at 10 years old, I was pretty much winging it every time." "You've had these powers since you were 10? Midoriya exclaimed. "That's amazing." Ben was about to respond when a loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the campus. "Security breach," Aizawa announced, his demeanor instantly shifting to high alert. "Everyone back to the main building, now." "What's happening?" Ben asked as they quickly moved from the training ground. "Someone or something has bypassed the UA barrier system," Aizawa explained grimly. "Last time this happened, we were attacked by the League of Villains." Ben activated the Omnitrix. "Let me help. I've got experience with this sort of thing." Aizawa hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Stay with me. Students, follow 13 back to the evacuation area." As the students reluctantly retreated, Ben and Aizawa headed toward the source of the disturbance. They arrived at the main gate to find it partially melted by what appeared to be acid. "This doesn't match the League's usual methods," Aizawa noted, scanning the area with his bloodshot eyes. Ben examined the damage, a chill running down his spine. "I know this kind of corrosion pattern." He transformed in a flash of green light, becoming a dog-like alien with no eyes. "Wild mutt," he growled, sniffing the air intently. His heightened senses picked up an all-too-familiar scent. "He's here," Ben growled. "Dr. Onimo. I can smell his chemical signature." Before Aizawa could respond, a horrific screech filled the air. A massive creature soared overhead, what appeared to be a mutated hawk with 6 wings and glowing red eyes. Riding on its back was a green-skinned man with long white hair and a helmet with protruding antennae. "Ben Tennyson." Dr. Onimo called down. "I should have known you'd find your way to this fascinating world of genetic anomalies." Ben transformed back to human momentarily. "Aizawa, that's him. The guy who caused all this. What do you want, villain?" Aizawa shouted up at Onimo, his capture weapon at the ready. Onimo laughed maniacally. "This world is a geneticist's paradise. So many unique mutations to study and enhance." He adjusted a dial on a new device strapped to his arm. "I've already acquired some very interesting samples." The mutated hawk dive-bombed toward them. Ben quickly transformed again. Big chill. The moth-like alien turned intangible as the hawk passed through him, while Aizawa dodged with impressive agility. "Your erasure quirk won't work on my beautiful creations, hero." Onimo taunted. They aren't powered by your world's genetic quirk of nature, but by my superior science. How does he know about my quirk already? Aizawa muttered. Ben flew up to eye level with Onimo. You've been busy, huh? Making friends with the locals? Oh yes, Onimo grinned wickedly. This world has individuals who appreciate my genius. People with resources and ambitions that align with my own. A chill that had nothing to do with his current alien form ran through Ben. You're working with someone. Who? Instead of answering, Onimo pressed a button on his device. The hawk let out another ear-piercing screech before suddenly changing direction and flying away at incredible speed. This was merely a reconnaissance, Tennyson. Onimo called back. Our real confrontation will come soon enough. This world's power will be mine to command. Ben attempted to pursue, but the hawk was surprisingly fast. By the time he returned to Aizawa, the pro-hero was already on his communicator. We need to report this to Nizu immediately, Aizawa said as Ben transformed back. If this Dr. Onimo is collaborating with local villains, we could be facing a significant threat. He mentioned resources, Ben noted worriedly. Onimo usually works alone because no one takes him seriously. If someone here is backing him, then they likely want something from him in return, Aizawa finished the thought. Possibly related to your Omnitrix technology. Ben looked down at the device on his wrist. That's never good news. Later that evening, Ben sat in UA's cafeteria with several students from Class 1A who had insisted on keeping him company. Midoriya, Uraraka, Ida, and Yayorozu listened intently as he explained more about his world and previous adventures. So there aren't any natural superpowers where you're from? Midoriya asked, fascinated. Just aliens and technology? Pretty much, Ben confirmed. We have organizations like the plumbers that keep things in check, but nothing like your structured hero society. The freedom of your heroic endeavors is quite remarkable, Ida said, adjusting his glasses. Though I must say, the lack of regulation seems potentially problematic. Ben laughed. Oh, I get in trouble plenty. My grandpa Max is always on my case about property damage. Speaking of damage, Yayorozu interjected, your battle with Bakugo was impressive. Your strategic approach showed excellent adaptation. Thanks, Ben replied, genuinely flattered. I've had a lot of practice against different types of opponents. After a while, you learn to read fighting styles. Could you tell us more about this Dr. Onimo? Midoriya asked, his notebook ready. If he's teaming up with villains here, we should know what to expect. Ben's expression grew serious. Onimo's obsessed with genetic manipulation. His typical move is creating mutated animals to do his bidding. The problem is, in this world, he has access to DNA with quirk factors. I don't even want to imagine what he could do with that. The conversation paused as Bakugo approached their table, tray in hand. He glared at Ben. Don't get comfortable, Transformer, he growled. Next time, I'll blast that wheat body of yours to ashes. Ben smirked. Looking forward to the rematch, Explosion Boy. Bakugo bristled at the nickname but was dragged away by Kirishima before he could retort. You really shouldn't antagonize him, Uraraka said with a nervous laugh. Bakugo has a explosive temper. I've noticed, Ben replied dryly. Their conversation was interrupted by Aizawa, who approached with Principal Nizu. Tennyson, Aizawa called. We need to discuss security measures. Our support department has analyzed the energy signatures from both your arrival and today's breach. There are, concerning similarities. Ben excused himself from the table and followed the teachers to a secure conference room where several other pro-heroes had gathered, including All Might in his power-down form. Young Tennyson, All Might greeted him solemnly. We've discovered something troubling. Nizu gestured to a holographic display showing energy readings. The dimensional disturbance that brought you here didn't just open a pathway between your world and ours. It created what our scientists call dimensional thinning, areas where the barrier between universes is significantly weakened. Meaning what, exactly? Ben asked, though he had a sinking feeling he already knew. Meaning, Aizawa explained, that with the right technology, someone could potentially create more stable passages between dimensions. Given what we know about Dr. Onimo and his new allies, this is extremely concerning. We believe Dr. Onimo may be working with a villain who calls himself All for One, All Might added, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. He is, without exaggeration, the most dangerous individual in our world. Ben frowned. All for One. What's his deal? His quirk allows him to steal other people's quirks and use them as his own, Mizu explained. He's amassed hundreds over his lifetime. Wait, Ben's eyes widened. He can take multiple powers and use them all. That's like, if someone could access all my alien forms simultaneously. Precisely, All Might nodded grimly. And if he's working with Dr. Onimo, then they might be trying to find a way to use the Omnitrix technology to enhance All for One's abilities, Ben finished, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. That's seriously bad news. Indeed, Mizu agreed. Which is why we're implementing additional security measures. You'll be moved to a more secure location within UA. And we're assigning pro-heroes to monitor for any unusual energy signatures that might indicate another dimensional breach. Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through the alien icons thoughtfully. If Onimo's working with this All for One guy, they're probably going to come after me, or more specifically, the Omnitrix. We're counting on it, Aizawa said. But this time, we'll be prepared. The next morning, Ben joined Class 1A for their rescue training exercise. The class had been transported to a special facility designed to simulate various disaster scenarios. Today's exercise will focus on evacuation procedures during structural collapse. 13, a pro-hero in a space suit-like costume, explained. Tennyson will assist by creating controlled obstacles using his transformations. Ben nodded, already considering which aliens would be most helpful. The exercise was about to begin when a strange ripple appeared in the air at the center of the facility. What the 13 began, but was cut off as the ripple expanded into what appeared to be a tear in space itself. From the tear emerged several figures, a man covered in disembodied hands, another with patches of purple mist for a body, and a woman with a psychotic grin and blonde hair in buns. Behind them came several mutated animals that Ben immediately recognized as Onimo's handiwork. The League of Villains, Aizawa hissed, pulling his goggles into place. 13, get the students out. Now. Too late for that, Eraserhead, the misty villain announced. We've come for a very specific guest of yours. His yellow eyes fixed on Ben. The boy with the transformation device. Ben stepped forward, Omnitrix at the ready. Let me guess, Onimo told you all about me. The hand-covered villain scratched his neck irritably. The doctor said you'd be trouble. But we have a mutual friend who's very interested in your equipment. All for One, Ben stated flatly. The villain's eyes widened slightly behind the hand covering his face. You've done your homework. Good. That means you know how pointless resistance is. Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix without hesitation. Humongosaur. The massive dinosaur-like alien towered over everyone present. I don't think so. You villains are all the same, no matter what dimension you're from. The students of Class 1A had already moved into defensive formations, ready to fight despite their teacher's orders to retreat. We won't leave you to face them alone. Midoriya called out, green lightning crackling around his body. Yeah. Kirishima added, his skin hardening into jagged edges. That's not what heroes do. The hand villain, who Ben learned was called Shigaraki, sighed dramatically. So annoying. Kurogyri, Toga, deal with the extras. The animals will handle Eraserhead. I'll take our primary objective. Be careful, Shigaraki, the mist villain warned. Remember what the doctor said about the device's capabilities? I remember, Shigaraki replied irritably. No touching the watch part. Just the wearer. Ben braced himself as the villains and mutated creatures spread out, engaging the pro-heroes and students in combat. Shigaraki moved with surprising speed, lunging toward Ben with outstretched hands. One touch is all it takes, he hissed. Ben swung a massive fist, forcing Shigaraki to dodge. Good luck reaching the Omnitrix. I've had plenty of practice keeping it away from grabby villains. Around them, chaos erupted. Aizawa was fending off 3 mutated wolves with glowing red eyes, while 13 used their black hole quirk to keep Kurogiri contained. The students had engaged Toga and several other villains who had emerged from the portal. Ben quickly realized that while Humongosaur's strength was useful, the confined space limited his effectiveness. He slapped the Omnitrix symbol. Jet Ray. His new manta ray-like form took to the air, firing neuroshock blasts at Shigaraki, who dodged with impressive agility. Changing forms won't save you. Shigaraki called up. We've studied your patterns from security footage. We know all your tricks. As if to prove his point, one of Anamo's mutated birds swooped down, forcing Ben to dodge right into the path of a thrown knife from Toga. The blade grazed his wing, drawing blood. Got some. Toga squealed delightedly, the knife coated with a small amount of Ben's alien blood. I wonder what happens if I use this. Before Ben could intercept her, Toga had already pricked her finger with the blood-coated knife. To everyone's shock, she began to transform, her body shifting into a bizarre hybrid of her human form and Jetray's features. This feels weird, she giggled, flexing the partial wings that had sprouted from her back. But I like it. She fired a weak neuroshock blast that Ben barely managed to avoid. How is that possible? Ben gasped. The Omnitrix DNA shouldn't work like that. My quirk lets me transform into anyone whose blood I taste, Toga explained cheerfully. Looks like your alien DNA works too. So many new possibilities. This new development sent a wave of alarm through Ben. If these villains could somehow harness Omnitrix DNA through this world's quirk systems, the potential for abuse was catastrophic. The battle continued to escalate. Ben shifted through several forms, Diamond Head to block Shigaraki's decay touch, Heat Blast to create a fire barrier between the villains and students, and XLR-8 to quickly evacuate injured combatants. Despite their preparedness, the combined forces of the League and Anamo's creatures were pushing them back. Then, just as the situation seemed most dire, a booming voice rang out. Have no fear, for I am here. A massive figure landed at the entrance to the facility, the impact creating a shockwave that temporarily paused the fighting. Ben recognized the muscular blonde man from news footage he'd been shown, All Might in his powered form. All Might. Midoriya called out, relief evident in his voice despite his battered condition. Shigaraki hissed in frustration. Not yet. We're not ready for him yet. He turned to Kurogiri. We got what we needed. Open the exit. But the device, Kurogiri began. We have samples, Shigaraki cut him off, gesturing to Toga who was still partially transformed into Jetray. That's enough for now. Ben transformed into Fast Track, racing toward Toga. Not happening. But before he could reach her, Kurogiri expanded his mist body, creating a portal that swallowed the League members and Anamo's creatures. This isn't over, Tennyson. Toga's voice echoed as the portal closed. We're going to have so much fun with your DNA. As the villains vanished, Ben returned to his human form, breathing heavily. All Might approached him, his perpetual smile somewhat strained. Are you alright, young Tennyson? Ben nodded, looking around at the damaged facility and injured students being tended to by 13. Yeah, but this is really bad. That girl, Toga, she was able to partially transform using Jetray's DNA from my blood. That shouldn't be possible. All Might's smile faded completely. If they can combine quirk abilities with your alien DNA, then All for One could potentially access powers beyond anything in either of our worlds, Ben finished grimly. We need to stop them before they perfect whatever they're planning. As recovery teams arrived and the injured were evacuated, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that this attack was just the beginning. The Omnitrix felt unusually heavy on his wrist, its power suddenly seeming more like a liability than an advantage in this world of quirks and villains. He approached Midoriya, who was having a minor cut bandaged by Recovery Girl. "You okay?" The green-haired boy nodded, though he looked shaken. "Yes, but, what they did with your DNA. It's frightening to think what could happen if someone like All for One got hold of that power." "I know," Ben agreed, looking down at the Omnitrix. "Which is why I need to step up my game. This isn't just about getting home anymore. It's about making sure these villains don't get their hands on technology that could devastate both our worlds." Midoriya's eyes filled with determination. "We'll help you. That's what heroes do, right?" For the first time since arriving in this dimension, Ben felt a genuine connection to its people. Despite their different backgrounds and powers, the core of heroism remained the same. "Right," he replied with a smile. "Heroes help each other, no matter what universe they're from." Little did they know, across the city in a hidden laboratory, Dr. Onimo was already examining the sample of alien DNA that Toga had collected, while a shadowy figure watched with intense interest from a medical chair surrounded by life support equipment. "Fascinating," Onimo muttered, peering through a microscope. "The genetic structure adapts to this world's quirk factor, creating a hybrid effect. With refinement, the possibilities are endless." "Can you isolate the transformation mechanism?" the shadowy figure asked, his voice deep and commanding despite his weakened state. "Given time, yes," Onimo replied eagerly. "But to truly harness the Omnitrix's full potential, we'll need more than just blood samples. We need the device itself, or at least a more comprehensive analysis of its technology." The figure's scarred face shifted into what might have been a smile. "Then we shall acquire it. The boy cannot stand against what I have planned." "What about All Might?" Onimo asked. "He arrived sooner than expected." "A temporary setback," the figure replied dismissively. "Soon, with your help, Dr. Onimo, I will have power beyond even what All Might can comprehend. And both our worlds will know the name of All for One." As lightning flashed outside the laboratory window, Onimo returned to his work, unaware that he was merely a pawn in a game far larger than his own ambitions. The DNA sample glowed with an eerie green light, pulsing like a heartbeat as it slowly merged with the quirk-enhancing compounds All for One had provided. The countdown to catastrophe had begun. Chapter 2, Rising Threats. The morning after the League of Villains attack, UA High School buzzed with tension. Security drones patrolled the perimeter, and pro-heroes stood guard at every entrance. Inside the conference room, Ben sat with the school's faculty and a team from the Hero Public Safety Commission, explaining, for what felt like the 100th time, exactly how Toga had managed to use his alien DNA. "So this transform quirk of hers adapted to the Omnitrix's genetic material?" asked a stern woman with short black hair who'd been introduced as the commission's lead investigator. "Yeah," Ben said, tapping the Omnitrix. "It shouldn't be possible. The DNA sequences are locked inside the device specifically to prevent this kind of misuse." Principal Nizu folded his paws thoughtfully. "Yet in our world, quirks can sometimes interact with foreign elements in unexpected ways. Toga Himiko's ability to take on others' appearances through blood consumption apparently extends to non-human DNA. Which is exactly why we need to contain this situation immediately," the investigator insisted. "If villains can harness alien abilities through quirk interaction, they'd still be limited by their own quirk's mechanics," Aizawa interrupted. "Toga could only partially transform and access limited powers. It's concerning but not catastrophic." Ben wasn't so sure. "Except Dr. Onimo specializes in genetic manipulation. If he finds a way to stabilize the transformation or extract the alien DNA properties, All Might, sitting in his diminished form, coughed softly. And if All For One acquires such capabilities, with his ability to steal and combine quirks, that's why we're implementing a full protective detail for young Tennyson, Nizu declared. He'll continue assisting with classes, but under constant surveillance. Ben bristled. Hold up. I'm not some kid who needs babysitting. I've been fighting aliens and supervillains since I was 10. This isn't your world, Tennyson, Aizawa reminded him. You don't know its dangers. And you don't know mine, Ben countered. Onimo's not your typical villain. He once turned an entire city's population into mutant animals. If he's working with your bad guys, we need to go on offense, not hunker down playing defense. The adults exchanged glances. Finally, Nizu nodded. Perhaps there's a middle ground. We continue our protective measures, but also allow Ben to participate in reconnaissance operations, under pro-hero supervision, of course. I can live with that, Ben conceded. After the meeting, Ben headed toward Class 1A's dorm building. He'd been invited to join them for dinner, something about building interdimensional hero cooperation, according to Ida's formal text message. As he approached the common area, he heard animated voices. No way Alien X beats 13's black hole. You don't get it, Caro. If he can manipulate reality, yeah, but there's gotta be limits. Ben couldn't help but smile as he walked in on what appeared to be a heated debate about his alien's abilities. Kirishima and Kaminari were gesturing wildly while Tsuyu and Midoriya countered their points. The others watched with varying degrees of interest. Yo! It's the man himself. Kirishima called out, waving Ben over. Settle this for us. Could your Alien X form survive getting sucked into 13's quirk? Considering Alien X can recreate entire universes, yeah, pretty sure he'd be fine, Ben replied, dropping onto the couch. Though he's kind of overkill for most situations. See? Midoriya exclaimed, flipping through pages of a notebook that Ben realized was filled with detailed sketches and notes about his aliens. The reality warping capabilities suggest a fundamental control over space-time that would, Deku, shut it with the nerd babble. Bakugo snapped from the kitchen area where he appeared to be aggressively chopping vegetables. No one cares about your creepy stalker notes. Actually, I'm impressed, Ben said, genuinely meaning it. You've got details in there I don't think I've ever told anyone. Midoriya blushed. I pay attention to combat applications. It's kind of my thing. Speaking of combat, Yaoyorozu said, entering from the hallway with a stack of books, I've been researching integrated battle strategies that might complement your transformation abilities, Ben. She set the books down and opened a tablet showing various diagrams. Ben moved closer, surprised by the depth of her analysis. You came up with all this overnight? She nodded, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I couldn't sleep after the attack, so I channeled my energy productively. Your diamond head form, for instance, could work remarkably well in tandem with my creation quirk. I could produce chemical compounds that enhance crystalline structures. That's actually really smart, Ben said, genuinely impressed. I usually just punch things harder. Yaoyorozu smiled. There's nothing wrong with direct approaches, but strategic combinations could maximize efficiency. As dinner preparations continued, Ben found himself naturally integrating with the students. Sato had prepared an enormous meal, and even Bakugo's aggressive cooking style resulted in surprisingly delicious side dishes. The conversation flowed easily, with students eagerly asking about Ben's past adventures. So you've actually been to space? Uraraka asked, eyes wide with excitement. Tons of times, Ben replied through a mouthful of food. There's this place called Undertown where aliens live secretly on Earth. And I've visited at least a dozen different planets. Man, that makes our internship sound boring, Kaminari groaned. Are there hot alien chicks? Mineta asked, drooling slightly until Jiro stabbed him with one of her earphone jacks. Ignore him, she said, rolling her eyes. We're all wondering though, don't you miss your home? Your family. The question sobered the mood slightly. Ben set down his chopsticks, considering. Yeah, I do. My cousin Gwen, my best friend Kevin, Grandpa Max, we've been through everything together. But I've been in tough spots before. They know I can handle myself. The support department is working non-stop on analyzing the dimensional energy patterns, Ida offered reassuringly. I'm confident they'll develop a solution. Plus we're gonna catch that creepy doctor guy, Ashido added, punching her palm. No villain gets away with attacking UA twice. Ben appreciated their optimism, even if he suspected the reality would be more complicated. After dinner, several students broke off into study groups, while others relaxed with games or conversation. Ben found himself on the balcony, staring at the night sky and wondering if the stars aligned the same way in this dimension. May I join you? He turned to find Yaoyorozu standing in the doorway, holding 2 steaming mugs. Sure, he replied, accepting the offered drink. What's this? Jasmine tea. I find it helps clear the mind. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the campus security lights sweep across the grounds. Your strategic thinking is impressive, Ben said finally. Reminds me of my cousin Gwen. She's always the brains of our operation. Yaoyorozu smiled. And you're the muscle. Hey, I have my moments of brilliance, Ben protested with a laugh. They're just, occasional. I've observed several during your demonstrations, she countered. Your instinctive adaptation to unexpected situations shows significant tactical intelligence. That's just experience. When you've been nearly killed by as many weird aliens and supervillains as I have, you learn to think on your feet. She turned to face him directly. Ben, may I ask you something personal? Shoot. Aren't you afraid? Being trapped in a strange world, facing villains who specifically want your power? Ben considered the question seriously. I guess I should be. But fear doesn't really help, you know. I've been in worse spots, had the Omnitrix nearly ripped off, been erased from existence, fought literal gods. You just keep moving forward. That's remarkably brave. Or stupid, depending who you ask, Ben replied with a grin. My cousin would definitely say stupid. Yaoyorozu laughed softly, and Ben noticed how her usually formal demeanor relaxed slightly. It was nice. Their moment was interrupted by an alert tone from her phone. She checked it and straightened immediately. The teachers have called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. All students are to report to the main hall at 0800. That can't be good, Ben murmured. The next morning, the entire student body gathered in UA's main hall. Principal Nizu stood on stage with the teaching staff and several pro-heroes Ben hadn't met yet. Students, I must inform you of a serious development, Nizu announced. Last night, 3 separate villain incidents occurred simultaneously across Mizudafu. Each involved creatures with unusual mutations consistent with those we encountered during yesterday's attack. Murmurs spread through the crowd as Nizu continued. More concerning, surveillance footage shows these creatures using what appear to be technological enhancements, devices grafted directly into their biology that amplify their abilities. The screen behind him displayed images that made Ben's stomach drop. The mutant animals clearly had familiar-looking tech embedded in their bodies, tech that resembled components he'd seen in Onimo's labs. That's Onimo's work, Ben said loudly, standing up. Those are neural amplifiers. He uses them to control mutated animals and enhance their abilities. Nizu nodded gravely. Indeed. Our analysis suggests these devices have been specifically modified to interact with quirk factors in living tissue. In essence, they're artificially enhancing these creatures' mutations beyond what should be biologically possible. Just like he did with the rhinoceros that brought us here, Ben realized. He's adapting his tech to work with your world's genetics. Aizawa stepped forward. Based on attack patterns and target selection, we believe these were coordinated test runs, the villains assessing their new capabilities while collecting data on hero response protocols. In light of these developments, Nizu continued, we're implementing additional security measures. Classes will continue, but field training will be restricted to campus grounds. Additionally, pro heroes will be stationed at UA on rotating shifts. As the assembly dispersed, Class 1A gathered around Ben. Those tech things looked nasty, Kirishima commented. Like the animals were being controlled. They probably were, Ben confirmed. Onimo treats living creatures like walking experiments. He doesn't care about the pain his modifications cause. How do we counter them? Todoroki asked practically. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through aliens thoughtfully. The neural amplifiers are usually the weak point. Disrupt them, and the creatures either revert to normal or lose coordination. Could your upgrade form perhaps interface with and override the technology? Yaoyorozu suggested. Ben looked at her, surprised. How'd you know about upgrade? I haven't used him yet. She blushed slightly. Midoriya's notes are quite comprehensive. Dude keeps records on everything, Kaminari added, throwing an arm around an embarrassed Midoriya. You should see his All Might collection. It's just analysis. Midoriya protested. And it's actually helpful, Ben said. Yaoyorozu's right, upgrade could probably hack the neural amplifiers. The problem is getting close enough without being torn apart first. That's where we come in, Uraraka said confidently. Team tactics. Aizawa approached, interrupting their strategizing. Tennyson, you're wanted in Lab 3. Power Loader and the support department have something to show you. Ben followed Aizawa through the campus to a heavily secured building. Inside, they found a workshop buzzing with activity. Students in lab coats worked alongside professionals, all focused on various technological projects. A man in an excavator-like helmet waved them over to a central workstation where holographic displays showed familiar energy patterns. Tennyson, this is Power Loader, Aizawa introduced. He's been analyzing the dimensional disruption that brought you here. And I've got good news and bad news, Power Loader said, manipulating the holographic display. Good news, we've identified the specific frequency pattern of your home dimension. In theory, we could open a stable portal. And the bad news? Ben asked, already suspecting the answer. We'd need an enormous power source and a stabilization matrix beyond our current capabilities, Power Loader admitted. Plus, the precise location coordinates are still fuzzy. Without them, you could end up anywhere in your dimension. Great, Ben muttered. So I'm still stuck here. Not necessarily, came a voice from nearby. A pink-haired girl with crosshair-like eyes popped up from behind a pile of equipment. The problem isn't insurmountable, just a matter of finding the right babies. Babies? Ben questioned. She means inventions, Power Loader explained wearily. Hatsum, please try to use normal terminology with our guest. But my babies are the solution. Hatsum insisted, pulling Ben toward another workstation. Look. I've been studying the energy signature from your watch device, the Omnitrix, Ben corrected automatically. Right. It emits a unique quantum signature that doesn't match our dimensional baseline. If we could amplify that signal and synchronize it with our portal generator, we could potentially use the Omnitrix itself to lock onto my home dimension, Ben finished, understanding dawning. That's, actually brilliant. Hatsum beamed. Of course it is. My babies are always brilliant. Now we just need to build an amplification matrix calibrated to your specific quantum frequency, then integrate it with a dimensional tearing device that can, it's still theoretical, Power Loader interrupted. And would require resources we don't currently have. But it's a starting point. Ben felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since arriving. How long would something like this take to build? Power Loader and Hatsum exchanged glances. Under ideal conditions. 2 weeks, Power Loader said. I could do it in 1 if you let me skip classes. Hatsum declared. But there's another complication, Power Loader continued, ignoring her. We detected similar dimensional energy flares at each of last night's villain attacks. It appears Dr. Onimo has already begun building his own version of dimensional technology. The hope Ben had felt quickly transformed into dread. If Onimo creates a stable dimensional portal before we do, he could potentially bring more threats from your world to ours, Aizawa finished grimly. Or worse, send enhanced villains from our world to yours. We can't let that happen, Ben stated firmly. I need to find Onimo and shut him down, now. Aizawa's phone buzzed with an alert. His expression hardened as he read the message. That might be sooner than expected. There's an incident downtown, multiple mutated creatures with tech enhancements attacking the financial district. And reports of a green-skinned man with mechanical components directing them. Onimo, Ben confirmed, already activating the Omnitrix. Time to go fishing for a mad scientist. 30 minutes later, Ben, as Jet Ray, soared above downtown Muzutafu alongside Hawks, the winged hero. Below them, chaos reigned as several mutated creatures rampaged through the financial district. Pro-heroes were already on scene, evacuating civilians and engaging the threats. I count 6 mutants, Hawks called over the communicator built into the earpiece Aizawa had given Ben. 2 avian, 3 mammalian, 1 reptilian. All show signs of the tech enhancements you described. Any sign of Onimo himself? Ben asked, scanning the area. Negative. But we've got a problem at Muzutafu's central bank, some kind of drilling machine breaking through the vault wall. Classic Onimo distraction tactic, Ben replied. Create chaos in one area while he goes after his real target elsewhere. You take the bank, Hawks decided. I'll coordinate the response team against the mutants. Ben banked sharply, streaking toward the bank building where alarms blared. He phased through the wall, finding himself in a chaotic scene, bank employees cowering behind counters while a massive drilling machine bore through the vault door. Controlling it was unmistakably Dr. Onimo, though his appearance had changed. His body now featured more mechanical components, including what appeared to be support brackets along his spine and arms. Upgrading your look, Onimo. Ben called out, firing neuroshock blasts that forced the scientist to duck. The cyborg villain style is pretty cliché. Onimo looked up, his red eyes widening behind his goggles. Tennyson. Right on schedule. That didn't sound good. Ben transformed mid-air, landing as 4 arms. Whatever you're after, it's not worth it, he warned, advancing on the drilling machine. Oh, I'm not after money, Onimo replied with a disturbing smile. I'm after you. Too late, Ben noticed the device Onimo held in his hand, not a controller for the drill, but a remote trigger. The floor beneath Ben suddenly erupted as hidden devices activated, generating an energy field that surrounded him completely. A containment field calibrated to the Omnitrix's energy signature, Onimo explained proudly. My new associate provided some fascinating technology to complement my genius. Ben strained against the field, but even 4 arms strength couldn't break through. He slapped the Omnitrix symbol, transforming into Diamond Head, then Big Chill, then Humongousaur, each form equally trapped. Struggle all you want, Onimo cackled. This field adapts to each transformation. The more you change, the more data we collect on your alien forms. Ben demanded, reverting to human form to conserve the Omnitrix's energy. You mean all for one? You're working for him now, Onimo. Since when do you play second fiddle to anyone? A flash of irritation crossed Onimo's face. A temporary arrangement of mutual benefit. His resources are substantial. And his understanding of this world's genetic peculiarities complements my expertise perfectly. He's using you, Ben insisted. Once he gets what he wants from the Omnitrix, you'll be disposable. Perhaps, Onimo admitted, adjusting controls that caused the containment field to contract slightly. Or perhaps I'll find a way to claim his power for myself. This world's quirk factor is remarkably adaptable to genetic manipulation. I've already enhanced my own body using samples collected by our mutual associates. Ben noticed now that Anamo's mechanical components weren't entirely mechanical, they seemed to be fused with his flesh in a way that suggested quirk-based modification. You experimented on yourself? That's a new level of crazy, even for you. Evolution requires sacrifice, Anamo replied dismissively. Now, shall we proceed to the extraction phase? I'm particularly interested in examining the Omnitrix's core programming. Before Anamo could activate whatever extraction entailed, the bank's wall exploded inward. Through the dust-charged Midoriya, green lightning crackling around his body, followed by Todoroki, Bakugo, and Yaoyorozu. Ben! Midoriya shouted. We got Hawk's alert about the trap. Anamo scowled, pressing buttons on his ARM console. Annoying children. Let's see how you handle my latest creations. From the drilling machine emerged three smaller creatures, what appeared to be genetically modified monkeys with tech components embedded in their skulls. They screeched and leapt toward the UA students with unnatural speed. Bakugo blasted one midair with an explosion. Die, you freaky monkey. Todoroki created an ice wall to block another, while Midoriya engaged the third with incredible speed, matching the mutant creature's movements. Yaoyorozu made her way toward the containment field, creating a device from her arm. This is a frequency disruptor, she called to Ben. It should destabilize the field. Oh no you don't. Anamo activated another control, and the drilling machine transformed, mechanical components rearranging into a combat configuration. It fired a blast that forced Yaoyorozu to dive for cover. Your friends cannot save you, Tennyson. Anamo declared. My preparations are too thorough. Ben wasn't so sure. While Anamo focused on the students, Ben had been surreptitiously trying different alien transformations, noting which ones caused the containment field to fluctuate most. There was one he hadn't tried yet, one that might just work. You know your problem, Anamo. Ben called out, drawing the scientist's attention back to him. You're so focused on biology and genetics that you overlook one key factor. And what might that be? Anamo asked condescendingly. Energy, Ben replied, slapping the Omnitrix. Feedback. The containment field surged as Ben's new form, a black alien with plug-like fingers and golden conductors on his head, began absorbing the very energy keeping him trapped. The field flickered and destabilized. Impossible. Anamo shouted. The containment algorithm should adapt. Can't adapt if I'm draining faster than it can recalibrate, Ben replied, his body crackling with absorbed energy. And guess what happens to all that power I just took in? Ben blasted the accumulated energy directly at Anamo, sending the scientist flying backward into his own drilling machine. The impact triggered a chain reaction of explosions through the modified equipment. Everyone out now. Ben shouted, reverting to human form and racing toward the students. They evacuated just as the drilling machine detonated completely, destroying much of the bank's interior. Outside, pro-heroes had contained most of the mutant creatures, though several had already escaped. Anamo? Midoriya asked as they regrouped behind a police barrier. Ben shook his head. Probably got away. He's cockroach-level stubborn. What was he after? Yaoyorozu questioned, still holding her partially created disruptor device. Me. Or more specifically, the Omnitrix, Ben explained. The whole attack was a setup to capture me and collect data on my transformations. For this all for one villain? Todoroki asked. Ben nodded grimly. Anamo said something about an extraction phase. I'm guessing they want to remove the Omnitrix, or at least get deep access to its programming. Not happening on our watch, Bakugo growled, small explosions popping from his palms. We're gonna crush these extra-dimensional losers. Ben couldn't help but appreciate the sentiment, even from the perpetually angry Bakugo. Thanks for the save, guys. How'd you know where to find me? We didn't, exactly, Midoriya admitted. After the alert went out about the attacks, Yaoyorozu suggested we analyze the pattern looking for outliers. The mutant attacks followed a radial pattern except for one gap, Yaoyorozu explained. Logically, that's where the true objective would be. Smart, Ben said, impressed again by her strategic thinking. Hawks landed beside them, his feathers looking somewhat singed. We've contained 4 of the 6 creatures. 2 escaped, likely returning to their master. Did you get anything from the ones you caught? Ben asked. They're being transported to a secure facility for analysis, Hawks replied. Initial reports confirm your theory, neural amplifiers controlling genetically modified animals, enhanced with quirk-derived biological components. Which means Anemo is successfully merging his technology with this world's quirk factors, Ben summarized. That's seriously bad news. As cleanup crews arrived to secure the bank, Aizawa appeared, looking even more exhausted than usual. We've got a problem, he announced without preamble. Intelligence reports just confirmed that known League of Villains members were spotted at 3 other locations during these attacks. They weren't participating, they were observing. Gathering intelligence on hero responses, Yaoyorozu deduced immediately. Precisely, Aizawa confirmed. This was a coordinated operation. The attacks, your attempted capture, all of it designed to collect data. Data for what? Bakugo demanded. Ben had a sinking feeling he knew. They're preparing for something bigger. Anemo mentioned an arrangement of mutual benefit with All for One. Whatever they're building together, today was just reconnaissance. Return to UA immediately, Aizawa instructed. The principal is calling an emergency strategy meeting. Back at UA, the atmosphere was tense. In the secure conference room, holographic displays showed maps of the attack locations, footage of the mutant creatures, and analysis of their technological components. The sophistication of these devices exceeds anything we've encountered from the League previously, Power Loader explained, highlighting a neural amplifier extracted from one of the captured creatures. The integration of biological quirk factors with mechanical components suggests a breakthrough in bioengineering. Anemo's speciality, Ben confirmed. He's taking his usual mutations to a new level by incorporating quirk genetics. Nizu manipulated the display, bringing up a separate analysis. More concerning is this energy signature detected at each attack site. It matches the dimensional disruption that brought Ben to our world, but on a smaller, more controlled scale. They're experimenting with dimensional technology, All Might said grimly. Perhaps attempting to create a stable pathway between worlds. Or a weapon, Ben suggested. Anemo once tried to use cross-dimensional energy to mutate every living thing on Earth simultaneously. If he could harness that power and combine it with quirk enhancement. The implications hung heavily in the air. We need to locate their base of operations, Aizawa stated. All evidence suggests they're working from a centralized laboratory. The energy signatures might help narrow it down, Power Loader offered. Each usage leaves trace particles we can potentially track. Then that's our priority, Nizu decided. Power Loader, coordinate with the Intelligence Division to triangulate possible locations based on energy residue. In the meantime, we'll prepare response teams for immediate deployment once we have coordinates. What about me? Ben asked. I should be out there looking for Anemo. That's exactly what they want, Aizawa countered. Today proved you're their primary target. All the more reason to take the fight to them before they're ready, Ben argued. Midoriya, who had been invited to the meeting along with several other top students, spoke up. What if we use that to our advantage? Set a trap of our own. All eyes turned to the green-haired student. Explain, Nizu prompted. They want Ben and the Omnitrix, Midoriya continued, growing more confident. What if we create a controlled situation where it appears they could capture him? Something convincing enough to draw out Anemo or his associates, but with our forces hidden in position. A honey trap, All Might mused. It has merit, but considerable risk. I like it, Ben said immediately. If they think I'm vulnerable, they'll commit resources. Maybe even bring in their heavy hitters. Or send expendable pawns, Aizawa countered. They've already demonstrated sophisticated planning. Then we need to make the opportunity too good to pass up, Yaoyorozu suggested. Something that would require direct oversight from Anemo himself. The discussion continued, strategies proposed and refined. Eventually, they settled on a plan. Ben would appear to be testing dimensional technology of his own, using equipment visibly stationed on UA's roof, that would seem to make the Omnitrix unstable. The apparent malfunction would be broadcast through channels the villains were known to monitor. The technology needs to appear legitimate, Power Loader insisted. These villains have demonstrated considerable scientific knowledge. Leave that to me and Hatsum, Yaoyorozu offered. Between my creation quirk and her expertise, we can construct convincing equipment. I'll help coordinate the student response team, Ida volunteered. With proper preparation, we can have multiple defensive formations ready. As the meeting concluded and assignments were distributed, Ben found himself feeling oddly energized despite the danger. This world's approach to heroism, the teamwork, the strategic planning, the infrastructure, was different from his usual improvised adventures, but he was starting to see its advantages. Midoriya approached as they filed out of the conference room. Are you comfortable with the plan? Being bait is never easy. Ben grinned. Trust me, I've been bait more times than I can count. At least this time it's intentional. Your confidence is admirable, Midoriya replied with a smile. I wish I had that natural certainty. Are you kidding? Your plan was spot on, Ben said. Back home, our usual strategy is, Ben turns into something big and hits stuff while Gwen and Kevin back him up. This whole coordinated hero thing is new territory. They walked together toward the dorms, discussing various tactical approaches. As they reached the common area, they found several other students already gathered, tension evident in their postures. What's up? Ben asked, noting their serious expressions. Kirishima held up his phone. Breaking news. There was another attack while we were in the meeting, this time at a genetics research facility. Place was completely ransacked. Casualties? Midoriya asked immediately. No deaths, Jiro replied, but several researchers hospitalized. Witnesses described a woman with blonde hair who could transform parts of her body into animal features. Toga, Ben realized. She must be using the DNA sample she got from me. That's not all, Uraraka added, her usual cheerfulness absent. They're saying she was accompanied by someone new, a mechanical man who controlled technology with his touch. A chill ran down Ben's spine. That sounds like malware, a mechamorph criminal from my world. But he was destroyed years ago. Could Anemo have recreated something similar using your DNA samples? Yaoyorozu suggested. Maybe not malware exactly, but if he's found a way to synthesize galvanic mechamorph DNA and combine it with a quirk. Ben trailed off, the implications disturbing. We need to accelerate our trap plan. They're moving faster than we thought. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. On the roof of UA's main building, an impressive array of technological equipment took shape, some functional, some purely for show. Hatsum worked tirelessly alongside Power Loader and Yaoyorozu, constructing devices that emitted the correct energy signatures while appearing to interface with the Omnitrix. Ben spent hours each day visibly testing the equipment, making sure to demonstrate occasional instability in his transformations that would be detectable by any monitoring systems. Meanwhile, UA students and pro-heroes positioned themselves throughout the campus in concealed locations, ready to spring the trap. Remember, Aizawa instructed during their final briefing, we don't know exactly who or what will take the bait. Be prepared for anything, mutant creatures, League members, or entirely new threats. What if All for One himself shows up? Ashido asked nervously. A heavy silence fell over the group. All Might, present despite his weakened condition, spoke up. All for One rarely appears in person these days. He typically operates through proxies. But if he does. The former symbol of peace straightened his thin frame, then I will face him again. No one missed the gravity of that statement, nor the concern it generated. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Ben said, trying to lighten the mood. Onimo's ego usually makes him want to handle things personally. With luck, he'll bring just enough backup for us to capture him without bringing in the big guns. As evening fell on the third day, Ben stood alone on the roof, making final adjustments to the dimensional stabilizer that Hatsum had built. The device actually did interface with the Omnitrix in a limited way, enough to create impressive light shows and energy fluctuations that would register on scanning equipment. Testing phase complete, Ben announced loudly for the benefit of any surveillance. Omnitrix dimensional recalibration at 60%. Full synchronization projected in 2 hours. Through his earpiece, he heard Midoriya's voice. Perimeter sensors just picked up movement in the woods north of campus. Multiple heat signatures approaching slowly. Maintain position, Aizawa responded. Let them come to us. Ben continued his performance, occasionally producing dramatic energy surges from the equipment. As darkness settled completely, he heard Jiro's tense report. I can hear them. At least 8 distinct footsteps, plus something, slithering. They're surrounding the main building. Everyone stay calm, All Might instructed. Remember your positions. Ben activated a particularly bright sequence on the equipment, making it appear as though the Omnitrix was discharging energy into the stabilizer. Right on cue, the device sparked dramatically. Yes, he exclaimed loudly. Synchronization accelerating. Dimensional frequency locked. The attack came without warning. A portion of the roof simply dissolved into liquid, and through the opening rose a monstrous figure, humanoid but clearly mutated, with multiple arms ending in different animal appendages. Riding on its shoulders was Dr. Onimo, his cybernetic enhancements more extensive than before. Tennyson. Onimo called out gleefully. How convenient to find you experimenting with dimensional technology. Saves me the trouble of designing an extraction method. Onimo, Ben replied, feigning surprise while activating the Omnitrix. You're looking uglier than usual. Around the roof's perimeter, more figures appeared, several of Onimo's mutant creatures, accompanied by familiar League members, Toga, whose body seemed partially transformed with reptilian features, Twice, carrying multiple weapons, and a new figure who appeared to be composed of shifting black and green technological components. Like my new assistant. Onimo gestured to the tech-based villain. We call him Overwrite, a successful fusion of your galvanic mechamorph DNA with a compatible technology manipulation quirk. Quite effective, wouldn't you say? The mechamorph hybrid extended an arm that morphed into a cannon, firing a blast that destroyed part of Ben's equipment. Signal the others, Ben muttered into his calm as he transformed. Humongosaur. The trap was sprung. From concealed positions around the campus, UA students and pro-heroes emerged, converging on the main building. Aizawa and Present Mike appeared on an adjacent roof, while Midoriya and Todoroki burst through the access door behind Ben. You walked right into our trap, Onimo. Ben declared, growing to his full dinosaur height. Onimo's smile didn't falter. Did I? Or perhaps you walked into mine. A massive surge of energy suddenly emanated from Overwrite, who had interfaced with the remaining equipment. The devices Ben had been using, intended only as props, began glowing with real power. Your little toys were quite informative, Onimo explained as chaos erupted around them. The basic principles were sound, just needed some improvements from my new friend here. The mechamorph hybrid's body pulsed as it channeled energy through the equipment, creating what appeared to be a genuine dimensional rift, a swirling vortex of green and black energy that began expanding above the roof. Stop him! Ben shouted, charging toward Overwrite. The mutant creature carrying Onimo intercepted, its multiple limbs striking with coordinated precision. Around them, battles broke out as UA forces engaged the League members and mutants. Todoroki created a massive ice wall to contain the expanding rift, but Overwrite simply absorbed the ice, incorporating its properties into his technological form. Midoriya attempted to flank him, green lightning crackling as he moved at incredible speed, but Toga intercepted, her transformed body matching his agility. Ben! Yaoyorozu's voice came through his calm, the energy readings from that rift are identical to what brought you here. It's a genuine dimensional portal. But that's impossible, Ben replied, grappling with the mutant. These were just props. Overwrite must be using the Mechamorpha's technological manipulation to convert them into functional devices, she theorized. You need to stop him before the portal stabilizes. Ben threw off his opponent and slammed the Omnitrix, transforming again. Diamond Head. He fired crystal shards at Overwrite, but the Mechamorph hybrid simply absorbed and restructured them, incorporating the crystalline properties into his own form. Fascinating adaptation, Anemo observed from his protected position. The combination of your alien DNA with this world's quirk factors creates something entirely new, a hybrid with the strengths of both and none of the weaknesses. The dimensional rift continued expanding, now large enough that objects on the roof, broken equipment, debris from the battles, began lifting toward it. Whatever you're planning, it ends now. Ben shouted, transforming again. Feedback. He attempted to absorb the energy from the rift, but unlike the containment field at the bank, this energy pattern was chaotic and resistant to his absorption abilities. You can't control dimensional energy that easily, Tennyson, Anemo called out. It took months of research and experimentation to reach this point. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Despite the hero's best efforts, the League forces were holding their own, and the rift continued expanding. Through his comm, Ben heard increasingly desperate reports from around campus. Southeastern perimeter breached. More mutants incoming. We need backup at the west entrance. Some kind of acid-spitting creature. The rift is affecting local gravity. Structural damage reported in the main building. This had gone well beyond their planned trap. The villains had known they were coming, had prepared accordingly. In a moment of clarity, Ben realized their mistake. They let us set a trap because they were setting one of their own. He transformed again, this time into Big Chill, and flew directly toward Anemo. This ends now. Phasing through the mutant protector, he reached for Anemo himself, intending to freeze the scientist solid. Anemo merely smiled and pressed a button on his wrist console. A pulse of energy erupted outward, catching Ben mid-transformation and causing the Omnitrix to glitch spectacularly. Ben reverted to human form involuntarily, falling to the roof with a painful thud. A targeted electromagnetic pulse calibrated to the Omnitrix's specific frequency, Anemo explained, advancing on the temporarily powerless Ben. Just one of many countermeasures we've prepared. The Omnitrix sparked and flickered on Ben's wrist. Warning, external interference detected. Recalibration required, it announced in Asmatha's voice. Perfect timing, Anemo said, producing a specialized tool from his belt. Now for the extraction. Before he could reach Ben, a flash of green lightning intercepted him, Midoriya, moving faster than Ben had seen before, landing a devastating kick that sent Anemo flying backward. Ben! Are you okay? Midoriya helped him up, eyeing the malfunctioning Omnitrix with concern. I'll be fine, Ben assured him, though the Omnitrix's continued sparking suggested otherwise. But we need to shut down that portal. The rift had grown enormously, now spanning nearly the entire roof. Overwrite stood at its center, his body seeming to both feed and draw power from the dimensional tear. Around them, the battles had intensified, Todoroki trapping twice in ice while simultaneously fending off a mutant with fire blasts, Yaoyorozu creating capture weapons that Uraraka made weightless to ensnare flying creatures, Bakugo and Kirishima fighting back-to-back against multiple opponents. Despite their valiant efforts, the situation was spiraling out of control. The dimensional rift had begun pulling more strongly, now dragging larger objects toward its swirling vortex. Then, through the chaos, a new figure appeared, rising through the same opening Anemo had used earlier. A tall man in an elegant suit, his face obscured by what appeared to be a life support mask connected to tubes that ran down his neck and beneath his clothing. The effect on the heroes was immediate. All Might, who had been coordinating from a command position, suddenly went rigid with tension. "He's here," he whispered, his voice carrying through the comm system. "All for one." The master villain surveyed the chaos with what might have been satisfaction, it was hard to tell with his face concealed. When he spoke, his voice carried an unnatural resonance. "Fascinating device, this Omnitrix," he said, seemingly addressing no one in particular. "A repository of genetic material that allows instantaneous transformation. In many ways, not dissimilar to my own quirk." His attention focused on Ben, who was still struggling with the malfunctioning Omnitrix. "You must be Benjamin Tennyson. Dr. Anemo has told me much about you and your adventures." Despite the pain from the Omnitrix's malfunction, Ben managed a defiant grin. "And you must be the big bad everyone's so worried about. Gotta say, the life support look isn't very intimidating." All for One chuckled, the sound distorted through his mask. "Such bravado. I see why Anemo finds you irritating." He turned to Overwrite. "Is the portal stabilized?" The mechamorph hybrid's face formed what might have been a smile. "Yes, Master. Dimensional coordinates locked. We can begin the transfer whenever you're ready." "Excellent." All for One extended a hand toward the rift, which pulsed in response. "Soon, a new era of power will begin, one that transcends the limitations of a single dimension." Before he could continue, a blurred figure crashed into him with tremendous force, All Might, having abandoned his command position to confront his nemesis directly. "It ends here, All for One," the former symbol of peace declared, his weakened body nonetheless moving with surprising power. All for One recovered quickly, straightening his suit with casual menace. "Tashinori. Still clinging to the remnants of your power, I see. How disappointing." The two archenemies engaged in combat, their battle a stark contrast to the others raging across the roof. Even in his diminished state, All Might fought with skill and determination, while All for One countered with a variety of quirks that seemed to anticipate every move. Ben's Omnitrix continued sparking erratically. "System reset initializing," it announced. "Standby mode activated. Reboot in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Ben groaned. "We don't have 10 minutes. "Then we'll have to do this without the Omnitrix," Midoriya declared, determination etched on his face. "We need to take down Overwrite, he's the one maintaining the portal." Ben nodded, pushing himself to his feet despite the pain radiating from the Omnitrix. "I may not be able to transform, but I still know a thing or two about fighting bad guys." Together, they charged toward Overwrite, who was still channeling energy into the rift. The mechamorph hybrid responded by creating multiple technological weapons from his body, firing energy blasts that forced them to separate and take cover. His body incorporates whatever technology or material it touches. Ben shouted to Midoriya. "We need to isolate him from external sources." "Uraraka." Midoriya called through his comm, "Can you make Overwrite weightless?" "I need to touch him first," came her strained reply as she continued dealing with flying mutants. "Yayorozu." Ben activated his own comm, "Can you create an insulator? Something that would disrupt his energy connection to the portal." "On it," she responded. "Keep him distracted." Ben grabbed a piece of broken equipment, using it as a makeshift shield as he advanced on Overwrite. "Hey, knockoff upgrade. Your green looks a little off-brand." The taunt worked, Overwrite directed his attacks toward Ben, giving Midoriya the opening to circle behind. As Overwrite fired another energy blast, Midoriya struck from behind, his enhanced strength momentarily disrupting the hybrid's form. "Now, Uraraka!" Midoriya shouted. Uraraka, having finally subdued her opponents, touched Overwrite's destabilized body. Immediately, the mechamorph hybrid began floating upward, his connection to the equipment severed. "No," he shouted, his voice an unnatural blend of mechanical and human tones. "The portal requires constant energy input." Sure enough, the dimensional rift began fluctuating, its edges becoming unstable. Yayorozu arrived with what appeared to be a specialized cannon. "EMP device," she explained, taking aim at Overwrite. "It should disrupt his technological components." She fired, and a pulse of energy engulfed the floating hybrid. Overwrite screamed, his body fragmenting into disconnected technological components and organic material. Without his stabilizing influence, the portal began collapsing in on itself, creating a dangerous vacuum effect that pulled everything nearby toward its center. "Everyone hold on to something," Ben shouted as the pull intensified. Across the roof, combatants from both sides scrambled for purchase. Some weren't fast enough, several of Animo's creatures were sucked into the collapsing vortex, along with debris and equipment. The League members retreated toward the roof's edge, Toga dragging an unconscious twice. All for One disengaged from his battle with all might, glancing at the collapsing portal with evident displeasure. "A setback, nothing more," he stated calmly, even as the chaotic energy swirled around them. He turned to Animo, who was clinging desperately to a ventilation shaft. "Doctor, it seems our timetable has accelerated." Animo nodded frantically. "The secondary device. It's ready, but not tested. It will have to do." All for One reached into his suit and produced what appeared to be a small remote. With a casual gesture, he activated it, causing a secondary energy pulse to emanate from somewhere below the building. The effect was immediate, the collapsing portal suddenly stabilized, its chaotic energy resolving into a more controlled pattern. "Backup system," Ben realized with growing dread. They planned for failure. All for One approached the newly stabilized portal, seemingly unbothered by its pull. "Dr. Animo has been most informative about your world, Tennyson. So many interesting species, each with unique genetic capabilities. A veritable buffet for someone with my particular talents." He extended a hand toward the portal, which rippled in response. The beginning of a new era of power, one where the barriers between dimensions are merely suggestions. Ben felt the Omnitrix vibrating on his wrist. The reboot was progressing, but still incomplete. Without his transformations, he was severely limited in what he could do against a villain of All for One's caliber. Then, something unexpected happened. From within the portal itself, a figure emerged, a swirling mass of purple-black energy that coalesced into a humanoid form. Ben recognized it immediately, a chill running down his spine. "Ian," he whispered. The time-traveling villain surveyed the scene, his featureless mask revealing nothing of his expression. "Tennyson," he acknowledged. "It seems my temporal sensors were correct. A dimensional breach significant enough to warrant investigation. You know this entity?" All for One asked, seemingly unperturbed by Ian's sudden appearance. "We've crossed paths," Ian replied cryptically. "I sense you're the architect of this dimensional tear. Impressive work for a being of such limited perspective." All for One chuckled. "I assure you, my perspective is anything but limited. Perhaps we share common interests. The boy and his device, for instance." Ian turned toward Ben, who was still struggling with the malfunctioning Omnitrix. "Benjamin Tennyson has been a thorn in my side across multiple timelines. However." He paused, considering. "Your interference in the dimensional barriers threatens something far greater than your petty ambitions." Without warning, Ian fired a blast of temporal energy at All for One. The villain blocked it with a barrier quirk, his mask betraying no emotion. "A pity," All for One said. "I had hoped for cooperation rather than conflict." What followed was a battle unlike anything the heroes had witnessed, All for One unleashing a dizzying array of quirks while Ian manipulated time and space around him. Their clash sent shockwaves across the roof, forcing everyone to take cover. "The portal's becoming unstable again." Yayorozu shouted over the chaos. The conflicting energy patterns are causing a resonance cascade. She was right, the dimensional rift was expanding and contracting erratically, sections collapsing while others ballooned outward. Objects caught in its influence seemed to age rapidly then revert to normal, the temporal distortions from Ian's powers affecting the already unstable tear. "This is bad," Ben muttered, looking down at his Omnitrix. Come on, reboot faster. "We need to evacuate," Aizawa ordered through the comm. "The structural integrity of the building is compromised." Most of the combatants had already disengaged, focusing on escape rather than fighting. The League members were retreating, dragging their wounded with them. Onimo, seeing the situation deteriorating, activated his cybernetic enhancements to leap from the roof, landing on one of his flying mutants. "Tennyson," he called back. "This isn't over. The next phase has already begun." Before Ben could respond, the Omnitrix suddenly glowed bright green. "System reboot complete," it announced. "Master control temporarily unlocked due to external temporal interference." Master control? Ben's eyes widened in surprise. "That's new." Without hesitation, he transformed. Clockwork. The mechanical alien's temporal powers immediately gave Ben insight into the chaotic energies swirling around them. He could see the dimensional rift structure unraveling, temporal fractures spreading outward like cracks in glass. "Everyone get back," he shouted, his voice carrying the metallic resonance of clockwork. "This whole area is becoming temporally unstable." Ian noticed Ben's transformation and broke off his attack on All for One. "The Chronosapien. No. You'll ruin everything." Ben focused his temporal energy on the rift, attempting to stabilize its fluctuations. "Whatever you're planning, Ian, it's not happening today." All for One, seeing an opportunity, directed a combined attack at both Ben and Ian. "I think not. The dimensional technology is too valuable to lose." Midoriya intercepted the attack with incredible speed, his body crackling with green lightning. "Ben. Whatever you're doing, keep going. We'll hold them off." Around him, the remaining UA heroes rallied, Todoroki creating ice barriers to contain the rift's effects, Yaoyorozu generating specialized equipment to monitor the energy fluctuations, Bakugo unleashing precisely targeted explosions to counter All for One's attacks. Ben concentrated harder, Clockwork's powers penetrating deeper into the dimensional tier structure. He could feel Ian attempting to counter his efforts, the two temporal manipulators engaged in a battle beyond physical space. "The temporal anchor points are destabilizing," Ben called out. "I need to collapse the portal before it expands beyond control." "Do it." All Might shouted, still engaged with All for One. "Whatever the cost." Ben channeled everything Clockwork had into a focused temporal beam, targeting the rift's core. The effect was immediate, the portal began contracting, its chaotic energy folding in on itself. Ian screamed in frustration, firing blasts of temporal energy that Ben deflected with precise movements. All for One, realizing his plans were unraveling, disengaged from All Might and charged toward Ben. "The dimensional technology will be mine." Midoriya, Todoroki, and several other students intercepted him, their combined attacks forcing even the master villain to pause momentarily. It was all the time Ben needed. "Collapse," he shouted, delivering a final surge of temporal energy into the rift. The dimensional portal imploded with spectacular force, creating a shockwave that knocked everyone off their feet. As it collapsed, it created a vacuum that pulled Ian back toward its center. "This isn't over, Tennyson," Ian shouted as he was dragged into the closing rift. "The temporal war continues across all dimensions." With a final flash of light and energy, the portal sealed itself, leaving behind only scorched equipment and the lingering smell of ozone. In the sudden silence, Ben transformed back to human form, exhaustion washing over him. All for One, remarkably composed despite the failure of his plan, straightened his suit once more. "Interesting. Perhaps dimensional manipulation requires more finesse than I anticipated." He turned to the UA forces who were regrouping around Ben. Another time, heroes. Before anyone could stop him, a warp gate appeared behind All for One, Kurogiri, who had remained hidden during the battle. The master villain stepped backward into the purple mist and vanished, along with the remaining League members. Ben slumped to his knees, the Omnitrix beeping as it reset itself. Master control deactivated, it announced. Standard function restored. Is it over? Uraraka asked, helping Midoriya to his feet. For now, Ben replied, looking at the empty space where the portal had been. But Anemo said something about the next phase. Whatever they were planning, I don't think this was the main event. Aizawa approached, his capture weapon retracted but his expression grim. The damage is extensive, but contained to the upper floors. No casualties among our forces, though several injuries requiring treatment. All for One appeared personally, All Might said, his diminished form trembling slightly from exertion. That alone tells us how important this operation was to him. And now this Ian character, Aizawa added, looking at Ben. Another complication from your dimension? Ian's, complicated, Ben explained. He's a temporal manipulator who exists across multiple timelines. If he's involved, things just got way worse. How so? Yaoyorozu asked, joining them with her scanning device still active. Ian doesn't just want the Omnitrix, he wants to manipulate time itself, Ben explained. And if he's found a way to access this dimension, then both our worlds could be in danger, Midoriya finished the thought. As recovery teams arrived and the injured were tended to, Ben couldn't shake a growing sense of dread. The battle had been chaotic, but something about it felt orchestrated. As if All for One and Anemo had expected failure, planned for it, even. They got something from this, he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Data, readings, something. Yaoyorozu overheard him, her sharp mind following the same path. The equipment. Even as it was being destroyed, it would have been gathering information on the portal's properties. And overwrite, Ben added. He wasn't just maintaining the portal, he was interfacing with it. Learning from it. Which means they might be able to create a more stable version next time, she concluded, concern evident in her voice. Ben nodded grimly. And next time, they'll be better prepared. The following morning, Ben stood with UA's faculty in the main conference room, where repair crews could be seen through the windows working on the damaged roof. Holographic displays showed analysis of the previous night's battle, with particular focus on the dimensional portal's energy patterns. The good news, Power Loader reported, is that the portal's collapse seems to have reset the dimensional thinning we were concerned about. Readings across the city show no abnormal energy signatures. And the bad news? Ben asked, already suspecting the answer. The technology Anemo and All for One developed, it worked, Power Loader replied grimly. Imperfectly, yes, but they successfully created a stable dimensional gateway, if only temporarily. With the data they gathered from this attempt, their next version will likely be more refined. Nizu manipulated the display to show a map of the city. We've increased surveillance at all potential targets, research facilities, power plants, technological development centers. If they attempt to gather more resources, we'll know. They already have what they need, Ben said, drawing surprised looks. Think about it, why retreat when they had us on the ropes? Because the battle itself was secondary. They wanted data on dimensional portals, and they got it. All Might nodded slowly. Young Tennyson may be right. All for One is nothing if not strategic. He rarely commits personally unless success is assured. Then what's their next move? Aizawa asked. Ben considered what he knew about both Anemo and All for One. Anemo's always been obsessed with genetic perfection, creating the ultimate life form through mutation and enhancement. All for One wants power, specifically, the ability to use multiple quirks without limitation. He looked down at the Omnitrix. The Omnitrix represents both, genetic transformation and multiple power sets in a single device. They won't stop coming after it. Which means you remain their primary target, Nizu concluded. Perhaps it would be safer if you remained within UA's grounds until our dimensional return technology is complete. Ben shook his head. That's exactly what they want, me isolated, defensive, reactive instead of proactive. We need to find them before they're ready for their next move. Before the discussion could continue, Hatsum burst into the room without knocking, her crosshair eyes wide with excitement. I've got it, she exclaimed, waving a device wildly. The energy patterns from last night's battle, they've given me the final calibration points we needed. For what, exactly? Aizawa asked with thinly veiled irritation. For sending our dimension-hopping friend home. Hatsum replied, as if it were obvious. The portal they created used the exact frequency of Ben's home dimension, we recorded it all. With those coordinates, I can finally calibrate a return device. Ben straightened, hope surging through him. You're saying you can send me back? Well, not today, Hatsum admitted. But maybe in a week. The principles are sound, we just need to build a stable emitter and power source. Power Loader examined Hatsum's calculations with growing interest. She's right. These readings complete our missing parameters. A return portal is theoretically possible now. The revelation changed the dynamic of their planning completely. If Ben could return home, he could potentially bring back help, plumbers, other Omnitrix wielders like his alternate self Ben 10,000, maybe even Azimuth himself. This changes things, Nizu said, voicing what everyone was thinking. If we can send Ben home safely, perhaps that should be our priority. But Onimo and All for One are still out there, Ben argued. If I leave now, you'll be facing threats from my dimension without any knowledge of how to counter them. We've faced unprecedented threats before, All Might reminded him gently. And you have your own world to protect. Ben felt torn. The prospect of returning home filled him with relief, but abandoning these people to face Onimo and All for One's combined threat seemed wrong. What if there's a way to do both? Midoriya suggested from the doorway, where he and several other students had apparently been eavesdropping. If we can build a return portal, couldn't we also create a communication device that works across dimensions? That way, Ben could go home but still help us if needed. Hatsum's eyes lit up. Yes. A quantum entangled transmitter calibrated to the same dimensional frequency. It would maintain connection regardless of spatial separation. In theory, Power Loader cautioned. But it's worth exploring. The planning shifted to a two-pronged approach, continuing the search for Onimo and All for One while accelerating development of both the return portal and a cross-dimensional communication device. For the first time since arriving, Ben could see a clear path home, yet the thought brought mixed emotions. Later that afternoon, Ben found himself in the training grounds with several Class 1A students. Despite the previous night's battle, they had insisted on continuing practice sessions, particularly focused on countering the mutant creatures and League members they had faced. Toga's ability to use your alien DNA is concerning, Yayorozu noted as they reviewed footage from the fight. Even partial transformation grants her significant advantages. And that overwrite guy was seriously bad news, Kirishima added. Like, how do you fight someone who can just absorb and use whatever you throw at them? The same way I deal with absorbing man back home, Ben replied. You use their absorption against them, give them something they can't handle or control. Like overloading them with too much energy. Midoriya suggested. Exactly, Ben confirmed. Or tricking them into absorbing contradictory elements. The key is forcing them to process more than they can handle. The strategy session continued, with students proposing various counter-tactics and Ben offering insights from his experiences. Despite the serious subject matter, there was an undercurrent of camaraderie that Ben found surprisingly comfortable. You know, Uraraka said during a break, I'm gonna miss having you around when you go back home. Yeah, man, Kirishima agreed. It's been super manly having another hero perspective. Even Bakugo, who had maintained his usual aggressive distance, grunted what might have been agreement. Your aliens aren't completely useless in a fight, he conceded, which from him was practically effusive praise. I haven't left yet, Ben reminded them. We still have Onimo and All for One to deal with. And we will, Todoroki said with quiet confidence. Together. The sentiment warmed Ben more than he expected. For all the differences between his usual solo heroics and UA's team-oriented approach, he had come to appreciate the strength that came from coordinated effort. As evening approached, Ben found himself walking the campus grounds with Yaoyorozu, who had suggested reviewing additional security measures for the dormitories. The thermal sensors have been recalibrated, she explained, showing him a tablet with building schematics. After analyzing the mutants' body temperatures, we've programmed alerts for any matching heat signatures. Smart, Ben replied, genuinely impressed. You guys think of everything. We've had to adapt quickly to numerous threats, she said with a slight smile. Though I must admit, dimensional invaders are a new challenge. Hey, I'm one of the good dimensional invaders, Ben protested with a laugh. Indeed you are, she agreed, her expression growing more serious. Which is why I hope our return portal project succeeds. You should be able to go home to your family and friends. Ben nodded, looking out over the campus as twilight settled over the buildings. Yeah, I miss them. But I'll miss this place too, weirdly enough. You guys have a good thing going here. Perhaps you could visit occasionally, she suggested. Once the dimensional communication technology is perfected, a visitation protocol might be established as well. Interdimensional exchange program? I like it, Ben replied with a grin. Gwen would definitely want to check out your hero courses. They continued walking, their conversation shifting to lighter topics, favorite training exercises, amusing hero mishaps, the strange logic of supernames. It felt surprisingly normal, given the extraordinary circumstances. As they reached the dormitory building, Yaoyorozu paused. Ben, may I ask something personal? Sure. Are you afraid? Of what might happen if All for One and Dr. Onimo succeed in their plans? Ben considered the question seriously. Not afraid, exactly. Concerned, definitely. If they manage to combine quirk factors with alien DNA in a stable way, they could create threats unlike anything either of our worlds has seen. Yet you remain so, composed, she observed. Experience, I guess, Ben replied with a shrug. When you've faced the end of the universe a few times, you develop a certain perspective. She smiled at that. A rather unique qualification for heroism. What about you? Ben asked. Are you afraid? She hesitated. I worry about being prepared enough. Having the right strategy, the right tools. In our previous encounters with the League, I've sometimes found myself questioning my decisions afterward. That's how you improve, Ben assured her. Trust me, I've made some epic mistakes. Ask anyone who knows me, I'm basically the poster child for learning the hard way. His self-deprecating humor earned a genuine laugh from Yaoyorozu, a sound Ben realized he hadn't heard often from the typically serious student. Thank you, Ben, she said as they reached the entrance. For sharing your experience with us. It's been illuminating. Anytime, he replied with a smile. That's what friends do, right? The word friends seemed to surprise her momentarily before her expression warmed. Yes, I suppose it is. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden alert from both their communicators, a priority message from UA's security system. The text was brief but alarming. Unauthorized energy signature detected, South Training Ground, similar to previous dimensional disturbance. They exchanged a quick glance before racing toward the indicated location, calling for backup as they ran. When they arrived at the training ground, they found an unsettling sight, a small, swirling portal hovering above the ground, its edges fluctuating but maintaining overall stability. It's too small for a person, Ben noted, activating the Omnitrix cautiously. More like a probe or, he was cut off as a metallic sphere emerged from the portal, hovering momentarily before projecting a holographic image. Dr. Onemo's face appeared, looking unusually smug even by his standards. "Greetings, Tennyson. I hope this message finds you appropriately distressed," the recording began. "By now, you've no doubt realized that our little confrontation last night was merely a data-gathering exercise." More UA students and teachers arrived, surrounding the hologram cautiously as it continued. "My associate and I have successfully refined our dimensional technology, as evidenced by this transmission. But this is merely a demonstration of what's to come." The holographic Onemo gestured grandly. "In exactly 24 hours, we will activate a full-scale dimensional gateway, one that will allow the transfer of specific genetic material between universes on an unprecedented scale." The hologram shifted to show complex schematics, a massive device surrounding what appeared to be a containment chamber. "My colleague is particularly interested in acquiring certain abilities from your dimension, Tennyson. And I, of course, have my own shopping list for your world's unique genetic specimens." Onemo's face returned, his expression darkening. "You have a choice. Surrender the Omnitrix willingly, or watch as we tear open the barriers between worlds, with potentially catastrophic consequences for both dimensions." The hologram displayed coordinates, an abandoned industrial complex on Muzutafu's outskirts. 24 hours, Tennyson. Come alone with the Omnitrix, or come with your hero friends to try stopping us. Either way, tomorrow marks the beginning of a new evolutionary era." With that final declaration, the holographic message ended, and the metallic sphere collapsed in on itself, the portal closing with a flash of energy. A heavy silence fell over the gathered heroes as they processed the ultimatum. Aizawa was the first to speak. "Obviously, it's a trap." "Obviously," Ben agreed. "But that doesn't mean the threat isn't real. If they've actually built a stable dimensional gateway, they could potentially bring dangerous entities from your world to ours," Yaoyorozu finished. "Or send enhanced villains to your dimension. Or both," Todoroki added grimly. "Then we don't have much choice," Midoriya said, determination evident in his voice. "We have to stop them." Ben nodded, looking at the coordinates displayed on Yaoyorozu's tablet. "Tomorrow, we end this, one way or another." As the group dispersed to prepare for the coming confrontation, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that they were still missing something important. Onemo's plan seemed straightforward enough, but All for One struck him as too calculating for such a direct approach. What were they really planning? And why give a warning at all? The answer, Ben suspected, would be revealed all too soon. Chapter 3, Worlds Collide. The war room at UA buzzed with activity. Holographic displays showed satellite imagery of the abandoned industrial complex, while faculty and top students huddled around tactical maps. Ben stood at the center of it all, pointing out potential weak points in the facility's structure. "Onemo loves his dramatic entrances, but he's predictable," Ben explained, highlighting a central warehouse. "He'll want a big open space for his dimensional device, somewhere with high ceilings and plenty of power access. Thermal scans show unusual heat signatures consistent with large power consumption in this building," Yaoyorozu confirmed, enlarging the image of a former manufacturing plant. "They've tapped into the old industrial power grid and significantly modified it." "What about entry points?" Aizawa asked, his bloodshot eyes narrowed in concentration. "Multiple options," Ben replied, cycling through his Omnitrix thoughtfully. "But they'll expect that. Onemo may be full of himself, but All for One strikes me as the type to plan for every contingency." The mention of All for One caused a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. All Might, present despite Recovery Girl's protests, straightened his gaunt frame. "We should assume he will be there personally," the former symbol of peace stated. "After the portal collapsed during our last encounter, he'll want to ensure success. Which means we're walking into the fight of our lives," Hawks added from his position near the window. "I've called in every available pro-hero, we'll have a perimeter established by dawn." Nizu stepped forward, his paws clasped behind his back. "We must approach this as a multi-objective operation. Primary goal, neutralize the dimensional device. Secondary, apprehend Dr. Onimo and any League members present. Tertiary. He glanced at All Might, contain All for One if possible, though evacuation takes priority if the situation deteriorates. And what about me? Ben asked, the question that had been hanging over the planning session. Onimo specifically demanded the Omnitrix. Absolutely not, Aizawa stated flatly. We don't negotiate with villains. But what if we made it look like I was surrendering? Ben suggested, an idea forming. Create a diversion while the main force approaches from another angle. Midoriya's eyes lit up. Like a decoy operation. Ben appears to comply with their demands, keeping their attention focused on him while we move into position. The strategy evolved from there, a complex plan involving simultaneous approaches from multiple angles, with Ben's apparent surrender as the centerpiece. Teams were formed, contingencies discussed, equipment prepared. Throughout it all, Ben found himself impressed by the level of coordination and professionalism, so different from his usual improvised heroics. You guys really do train for this stuff, he commented to Midoriya during a brief break. The green-haired student smiled. UA's motto is, plus ultra, going beyond. That includes preparation. In my world, it's usually just me, my cousin Gwen, and my friend Kevin against whatever alien warlord decided to invade that week, Ben admitted. Sometimes Grandpa Max brings plumber backup, but mostly we wing it. And you've been doing this since you were 10? Midoriya asked, clearly impressed. Yeah. Crazy, right? Ben grinned. Found the Omnitrix on a camping trip and boom, instant hero career. That's amazing, Midoriya replied earnestly. Most of us spent years dreaming of becoming heroes before getting the chance. You just jumped right in. The conversation was interrupted by Yaoyorozu approaching with a device in her hands. Ben, I've completed the Omnitrix Energy Signature Analyzer. It should help us identify any technology specifically designed to interface with your device. Thanks, Ben said, accepting the compact scanner. This'll definitely help if Onimo tries another targeted EMP. I've also created these, she continued, distributing small earpieces to both of them. Communication devices with encrypted frequencies that should resist interference from dimensional energy fluctuations. Ben tested the earpiece, noting its comfortable fit. You really think of everything. A faint blush colored Yaoyorozu's cheeks. I simply try to anticipate variables. It's impressive, Ben insisted. Reminds me of my cousin Gwen, she's always the brains of our operations. You miss them, Yaoyorozu observed softly. Your family. Ben nodded, a flicker of homesickness surfacing. Yeah. But right now, I'm focused on making sure Onimo and All for One don't get a chance to mess with either of our worlds. Their moment was interrupted by Nizu calling the group back to attention. Rest while you can, everyone. We move at 0500 hours. Tomorrow we'll test everything we stand for as heroes. As the meeting dispersed, Ben found himself unable to sleep despite exhaustion. He wandered to the dorm building's roof, gazing up at unfamiliar constellations. The stars looked different here, subtle variations that reminded him just how far from home he truly was. The door creaked open behind him, and he turned to find Midoriya stepping onto the roof. Can't sleep either? Ben asked. Midoriya shook his head, joining him at the railing. Too much adrenaline. Plus, I keep thinking about what All for One might do if he actually succeeds in combining quirks with alien DNA. It wouldn't be pretty, Ben admitted. His body is already struggling to handle multiple quirks, right? That's what the life support mask is for. Yes, Midoriya confirmed. All Might told me All for One's body has been pushed to its limits. That's why he wants the Omnitrix so badly, it would give him a way to use multiple powers without the physical drawbacks. Ben looked down at the device on his wrist. The Omnitrix was designed to promote peace, let people literally walk in each other's shoes by experiencing life as different species. But in the wrong hands. Power always attracts those who would misuse it, Midoriya said with surprising wisdom. That's why we need heroes, to protect that power from those who would corrupt it. They stood in companionable silence, the weight of tomorrow's mission hanging between them. You know, Ben said finally, for what it's worth, I think you guys would make great plumbers. Midoriya chuckled. Still sounds weird to me, calling space police plumbers. Hey, I didn't name them, Ben protested with a laugh. But seriously, the way you all work together, the dedication to protecting people, that's what being a hero is about, no matter what dimension you're from. Thanks, Ben, Midoriya replied, genuine appreciation in his voice. Coming from someone with your experience, that means a lot. As pre-dawn light began to creep over the horizon, Ben felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. Whatever happened today, he wouldn't be facing it alone. Operation Dimensional Shield launched precisely at 0500 hours. Multiple teams converged on the abandoned industrial complex from different angles, maintaining radio silence until they reached their designated positions. Ben, traveling as XLR-8, arrived with the primary infiltration team, Midoriya, Todoroki, Bakugo, and Yaoyorozu. Perimeter teams in position, Hawk's voice came through their specialized comms. No movement detected at the target building. Ben transformed back to human form, scanning the warehouse with the device Yaoyorozu had created. Definitely picking up dimensional energy fluctuations. They're in there, all right. And probably expecting us, Todoroki noted, frost forming around his right hand while steam rose from his left. That's why we stick to the plan, Midoriya reminded them. Ben approaches from the front, seemingly alone. We infiltrate through the maintenance tunnels while the secondary teams secure the perimeter. Let's just crush these extra-dimensional freaks already, Bakugo growled, small explosions popping between his fingers. Ben activated his Omnitrix, cycling through alien forms. Remember, Onimo's priority will be capturing me and the Omnitrix. All for One is the real wild card, we have no idea what quirks he's bringing to the fight. Just don't do anything stupidly heroic, Bakugo warned. I'm not diving in to save your alien ass if you get caught. Ah, Bakugo, I didn't know you cared, Ben replied with a grin. I don't, the explosive student snapped. I just want to be the one to beat you someday, and I can't do that if some villain takes you out first. Ben laughed. Fair enough. See you guys inside. With final nods exchanged, the team split up. Ben circled around to approach the main entrance while the others disappeared into a maintenance shaft Yaoyorozu had identified in the building schematics. As Ben walked openly toward the warehouse doors, he activated his comm, "This is Ben. Starting the distraction now. All teams on standby," Aizawa's voice responded. Move only on my signal. Ben took a deep breath, then called out loudly, Onimo. I'm here like you asked. Just me, no heroes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the massive warehouse doors slid open with a mechanical groan, revealing a dimly lit interior. Ben stepped forward cautiously, the Omnitrix ready on his wrist. Inside, the warehouse had been transformed. The central area contained an enormous circular device, a ring of technology nearly 30 feet in diameter, supported by scaffolding and connected to massive power cables. Around it, various monitoring stations blinked with activity, their screens displaying data streams and energy readings. The air hummed with power, making the hair on Ben's arms stand on end. Punctual as always, Tennyson, Dr. Onimo's voice echoed through the space. The scientist emerged from behind the device, his cybernetic enhancements even more extensive than before. Metal components now integrated fully with his body, giving him an unsettling hybrid appearance. I was concerned your hero friends might convince you to attempt something foolish. I'm just here to talk, Ben replied, continuing forward while surreptitiously scanning the area. Nice setup. Overcompensating for something? Onimo's eye twitched at the taunt. Mock all you want. Soon, the evolutionary boundaries between dimensions will be irrelevant. Yeah. You're going to create the ultimate life form, rule two worlds, yada yada. Ben crossed his arms. Where's your partner? I figured All for One would want front row seats for this. My associate will join us shortly, Onimo replied, moving toward a control console. He's quite eager to meet you properly, no interruptions this time. Ben glanced at the dimensional device, noting its similarities to the one they'd encountered at UA, so what's the plan exactly? Tear open reality just to spite me? Nothing so petty, Onimo replied, adjusting controls that caused the ring to hum louder. This device will create a stable pathway between dimensions, one that allows for precise extraction of specific genetic material. He gestured to a secondary machine connected to the ring, what appeared to be a modified containment pod with medical interfaces. Once you're secured inside, the Omnitrix will provide the dimensional coordinates. We'll extract DNA samples directly from your universe's various species, combining them with this world's quirk factors to create entirely new life forms. And let me guess, Ben said, edging closer to the main console while keeping Onimo talking. All for One gets first dibs on the new powers. A mutually beneficial arrangement, Onimo confirmed with disturbing enthusiasm. He acquires new abilities beyond anything this world has seen, while I advance genetic science by decades, perhaps centuries. Through his earpiece, Ben heard Midoriya's whispered update, we're in position beneath the main floor. 30 seconds. He needed to keep Onimo distracted. There's just one problem with your plan, Onimo. I'm not getting in your weird pod. The scientist smiled, revealing teeth that had been augmented with metallic components. I anticipated your reluctance. That's why I've prepared a special incentive. He pressed a button on his console, and a section of the warehouse wall slid open. Ben's blood ran cold at what he saw, a second containment pod, this one already occupied. Inside, unconscious but seemingly unharmed, was a familiar face. Gwen. Ben gasped, genuine shock overwhelming him. Your cousin proved surprisingly easy to capture once we established a stable mini-portal to your dimension, Onimo explained with sadistic pleasure. She was investigating the energy fluctuations on your side, walked right into our hands. Ben's mind raced. This changed everything. If Onimo truly had captured Gwen, the entire plan was compromised. But something didn't add up, Gwen was too experienced, too powerful to be caught so easily. I don't believe you, Ben stated, studying the containment pod carefully. That's not Gwen. Onimo's expression faltered momentarily. Your denial changes nothing, Tennyson. Surrender the Omnitrix, or your cousin suffers the consequences. Ben activated the scanner Yaoyorozu had given him, confirming his suspicion. Nice try, Onimo. Your Gwen is giving off quirk energy signatures. That's Toga with a DNA sample, isn't it? The fake Gwen's eyes snapped open, her face morphing into Toga's psychotic grin. Ah, you figured it out. No fun. Worth a try, Onimo shrugged, unperturbed by the failed deception. But my invitation stands, surrender willingly, or we'll simply take the Omnitrix by force. I've got a counter-offer, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix. How about neither? Swamp fire. The transformation triggered the operation. Simultaneously, the floor beneath several monitoring stations erupted as Midoriya and Todoroki burst through, while ice spread rapidly across the dimensional device's power cables. Hero ambush. Toga shrieked, breaking out of her containment pod with surprising strength. They're all here. Onimo snarled in frustration, pressing an emergency sequence on his console. Alarm sirens blared throughout the warehouse as hidden doors opened, releasing a dozen mutant creatures, each more grotesque than those they'd faced before. These new specimens showed clear signs of quirk factor integration, with some breathing fire while others manipulated gravity around them. Destroy them all. Onimo commanded. Protect the dimensional gateway at all costs. The battle erupted across the warehouse floor. Ben sent streams of fire toward Onimo, who dodged with unexpected agility thanks to his cybernetic enhancements. Bakugo blasted through the air, targeting the upper supports of the dimensional ring, while Yaoyorozu created a series of EMP devices that Midoriya delivered with lightning-fast precision to key control points. Outside, the perimeter teams engaged League members who had been hidden among the surrounding buildings. Through his comm, Ben heard reports of Dobby's blue flames, Mr. Compress's marble traps, and Spinner's blade attacks, all being countered by pro-heroes and UA students. The device is powering up despite our interruption. Yaoyorozu called out, checking readings on a portable scanner. They must have an auxiliary power system. Ben fought his way toward the main controls, batting aside mutant creatures with Swampfire's enhanced strength while regenerating from their counterattacks. We need to shut it down completely. Onimo, stop this before you tear reality apart. Too late, Tennyson. Onimo called back, now protected behind an energy shield. The process has begun. In 3 minutes, the dimensional barrier will be permanently weakened. As if to confirm his words, the massive ring began to glow, energy building around its circumference. Arcs of green and purple electricity shot between connection points, and the air within the ring shimmered like heat waves. We need to destroy that thing now. Bakugo shouted, readying his biggest explosion. No. Ben countered. A direct attack might trigger a catastrophic collapse. We need to disrupt it systematically. He transformed again. Upgrade. Ben's new form, a black and green technological alien, flowed toward the control systems, merging with the machinery. I'll try to access the shutdown protocols from inside the system. Keep the mutants off me. The others formed a protective perimeter as Ben interfaced with Onimo's technology. Inside the digital architecture, he found himself navigating a labyrinth of code and protocols, many bearing hallmarks of Onimo's chaotic genius alongside more structured elements that must have come from All for One's resources. This is bad, Ben communicated through the console speakers. The dimensional coordinates are locked on multiple targets, not just my world, but several alternate timelines. If this activates fully, a massive surge of energy suddenly coursed through the systems, forcing Ben to disconnect and reform his upgrade body to avoid being digitally shredded. He transformed back to human form, stunned by what he'd discovered. Onimo, you idiot, he shouted across the battlefield. You're not just targeting my dimension, you're trying to access the entire multiverse simultaneously. The power requirements alone will vaporize this entire facility. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Onimo's face. That's impossible. The calculations were precise. Your calculations were modified, came a new voice, deep, resonant, and unsettlingly calm. All for One emerged from a warp gate at the far end of the warehouse, his masked face revealing nothing of his emotions. He walked unhurriedly through the chaos of battle, mutant creatures and League members alike pausing in his presence. I took the liberty of adjusting the dimensional targeting parameters, All for One continued, approaching the humming gateway. Why limit ourselves to a single dimension when the entire multiverse offers infinite potential? That wasn't our arrangement. Onimo protested, genuine alarm in his voice. The power surge will destabilize the containment fields. The genetic extraction won't be selective, it'll pull in random entities. A calculated risk, All for One replied dismissively. From chaos comes opportunity. The fighting had paused, all eyes now on the master villain and the increasingly unstable gateway. Energy pulses had intensified, and the air within the ring had begun to tear, showing glimpses of other realities flickering like static. You've doomed us all, Ben stated, facing All for One directly. Dimensional barriers exist for a reason. Tear them down, and you don't just get cool alien DNA, you get cosmic horrors that make your worst villains look like playground bullies. All for One chuckled, the sound distorted through his mask. Your concern is touching, but unnecessary. I've prepared for every contingency. He raised his hand, and his fingers elongated unnaturally, transforming into writhing tentacles. including the acquisition of several new quirks specifically designed to control whatever comes through. Midoriya stepped forward, green lightning crackling around his body. "We won't let you do this. You cannot stop what has already begun," All for One replied calmly. With a gesture, he activated a hidden sequence in the gateway controls. The effect was immediate and terrifying. The energy ring erupted with power, the shimmer within solidifying into a swirling vortex. Through it, Ben could see fragments of different realities, glimpses of familiar worlds and utterly alien landscapes. "It's collapsing!" Yaoyorozu shouted over the roaring energy. "The dimensional boundaries are becoming unstable. Everybody out now." Aizawa's voice commanded through their comms. "Evacuation Protocol Alpha." But retreat wasn't an option. As the portal expanded, it began pulling objects toward it with increasing force, equipment, debris, even smaller mutant creatures were being dragged in. "If that thing fully activates, it won't just be this warehouse," Ben shouted to Midoriya over the chaos. "The dimensional tear could spread for miles. How do we stop it?" Todoroki asked, creating ice barriers that shattered almost immediately against the portal's pull. Ben looked at the Omnitrix, an idea forming. "The gateway is keyed to my dimensional frequency, that's why it's destabilizing, trying to access too many realities at once. If I can overload it with a focused pulse from the Omnitrix, you'll be at the epicenter of a dimensional collapse." Yaoyorozu protested, grabbing his arm. "The force could tear you apart. Got a better idea?" Ben asked, his expression grim but determined. Before she could answer, All for One appeared beside them, moving with impossible speed. "I think not, young Tennyson." With terrifying strength, he gripped Ben's wrist, the one bearing the Omnitrix. "This device belongs to me now. Get away from him." Midoriya launched himself at All for One, landing a devastating kick that would have shattered concrete. All for One merely absorbed the impact, his body briefly glowing with an energy nullification quirk. "Still too weak, young Midoriya." With his free hand, he swatted Midoriya away like an insect. Ben struggled against the villain's grip, but found himself completely overpowered. All for One's fingers began probing the Omnitrix, searching for a removal mechanism. "Fascinating device," the villain commented. "But ultimately just technology, susceptible to the right touch." "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Ben warned, continuing to struggle. "The Omnitrix has safeguards, trying to remove it forcefully could trigger a self-destruct powerful enough to take out half the city." "A bluff," All for One replied confidently. "But regardless, I don't need to remove it entirely." His fingers transformed again, becoming wire-like probes that inserted themselves into the Omnitrix's surface. Simply accessing its core programming will suffice. Ben felt the Omnitrix respond to the intrusion, its surface glowing with warning symbols. "System breach detected," it announced in Asmitha's voice. "Initiating defense protocol." A pulse of green energy erupted from the device, forcing All for One to release his grip momentarily. Ben seized the opportunity, slapping down the dial. Feedback. His new form, a black alien with plug-like appendages and a single eye, immediately began absorbing the chaotic energy surrounding them. "Let's see how you handle a power overload." Ben directed a massive surge of electrical energy at All for One, who countered with an insulation quirk. The villain's mask betrayed no emotion, but his voice carried a note of intrigue. "Energy manipulation. Useful. I look forward to adding it to my collection." Around them, the battle had resumed with renewed intensity. Todoroki and Bakugo tag-teamed against a group of mutant creatures, while Yaoyorozu created defensive equipment that she distributed to other UA students who had broken through from the perimeter. The dimensional gateway continued to expand, now large enough that the warehouse roof was being torn away in chunks. Through the portal, shadowy figures could be seen moving, attempting to push through the thinning barriers between worlds. "We're out of time," Ben shouted, abandoning his attack on All for One to focus on the gateway. "Everyone get back." I'm going to overload the portal. Ben, no. Midoriya called out, struggling to his feet after All for One's devastating blow. It's the only way. Ben replied, moving toward the gateway's control systems. The Omnitrix is the key, it's what they use to calibrate the dimensional frequencies. As feedback, Ben could feel the energy patterns flowing through the gateway, chaotic but with an underlying structure he recognized from his own experiences with cross-dimensional travel. If he could disrupt that pattern with a precisely calibrated counter-frequency. He plunged his plug-like fingers into the main power conduits, absorbing massive amounts of energy while simultaneously feeding back a modified signal through the Omnitrix. The effect was immediate, the gateway's stable swirl began to fluctuate, its edges pulsing erratically. What are you doing? Onimo shrieked, watching his creation destabilize. You'll destroy everything. Better than letting All for One tear open the multiverse. Ben replied, continuing to channel energy. All for One observed with calculating intensity. Then, to everyone's surprise, he chuckled. Impressive adaptation. But ultimately futile. With frightening speed, he moved to a secondary control panel, one Ben hadn't noticed before, and activated a sequence. The dimensional gateway suddenly stabilized again, its energy pattern shifting to compensate for Ben's interference. Did you think I wouldn't prepare redundancies? All for One asked, his calm voice carrying over the roaring energy. The gateway will open fully in 30 seconds. Nothing can stop it now. Ben released his connection to the power conduits, transforming again. Alien X. His new form materialized in a flash of green light, a humanoid figure of living darkness, its body dotted with points of light like stars in the night sky. An aura of immense power emanated from him, causing even All for One to step back warily. What is this form? The villain demanded, genuine surprise in his voice for the first time. Inside Alien X's consciousness, Ben found himself in the familiar void, facing the two personalities that shared control of this immensely powerful form. Bellicus, Serena, Ben addressed them urgently. We have an emergency, a dimensional tear threatening multiple universes. Another crisis requiring our intervention, Bellicus grumbled, his floating face scowling. Why am I not surprised? The situation does appear dire, Serena acknowledged, her expression more sympathetic. Multiple dimensional boundaries weakening simultaneously. I need your help, Ben pleaded. We have to seal the gateway and repair the damage before it spreads. And why should we care about these particular dimensions? Bellicus demanded. Because innocent people will suffer. Ben argued. Not just in this world or mine, but across countless realities. While this internal debate continued, Alien X remained motionless in the physical world, surrounded by the chaos of battle and the increasingly unstable gateway. Ben's not moving. Midoriya shouted, defending the immobile form from mutant attackers. What's happening? I don't know. Yaoyorozu replied, creating a shield to deflect energy pulses from the gateway. But we need to protect him. All for One studied the motionless cosmic form with keen interest. Such power, yet apparently limited by some internal constraint. Fascinating. Inside Alien X, the debate had intensified. We'll need a unanimous decision, Serena reminded them. All three voices must agree. I vote yes to sealing the dimensional tear, Ben stated firmly. I concur, Serena added. The multiverse should not be tampered with so recklessly. Bellicus harumphed. Fine. But I want it noted that this is the third multiversal crisis this solar cycle. The Celestialsapiens Governing Council will hear about this. With unanimous agreement reached, Alien X finally moved in the physical world. Ben raised a starry hand toward the dimensional gateway, cosmic power gathering at his fingertips. Reality alteration authorized, three voices spoke in unison from Alien X's mouth. Dimensional breach, seal. A wave of power unlike anything the heroes or villains had ever witnessed erupted from Alien X, engulfing the gateway completely. The swirling vortex froze, crystallized, and then collapsed inward upon itself, the tear in reality knitting closed with surgical precision. All for One, recognizing the threat this power represented, launched a desperate attack, combining multiple quirks into a devastating energy blast directed at Alien X. The cosmic alien didn't even acknowledge the attack, which dissipated harmlessly against his aura. Dimensional stability restored, Alien X announced, turning toward All for One. Threat assessment, severe. Recommended action, containment. With another gesture, cosmic energy surrounded All for One, creating an unbreakable bubble of altered reality that neutralized all quirk usage within its boundaries. The master villain found himself completely powerless for the first time in his long life. Impossible, All for One whispered, genuine fear finally entering his voice. Ben wasn't finished. With Alien X's power, he systematically neutralized every threat in the warehouse, League members frozen in stasis fields, mutant creatures returned to their normal animal forms, Onimo's cybernetic enhancements disabled and removed from his body. The UA heroes watched in awe as the cosmic alien single-handedly ended the conflict that had seemed hopeless moments before. When the last villain was contained, Ben turned his attention to his allies. Injuries, heal, he commanded simply. Throughout the warehouse, wounds closed, broken bones mended, and exhaustion vanished as reality itself was rewritten on a localized scale. Finally, Ben addressed the dimensional technology itself. Onimo's research, secure. Dangerous elements, neutralize. The warehouse shimmered as every piece of dimensional technology was simultaneously transformed, dangerous components rendered harmless while valuable research data was compressed into secure storage devices. With the immediate threats addressed, Alien X glowed green and reverted to Ben's human form. He stumbled slightly, catching himself on a nearby console. "That takes a lot out of me," he explained to the stunned onlookers. What was that?" Midoriya asked, wide-eyed with astonishment. Alien X, Celestial Sapien. Basically cosmic reality warpers, Ben explained between deep breaths. Only use them for emergencies because they're complicated. You rewrote reality, Todoroki stated flatly, looking around at the transformed warehouse. You changed everything with a thought. More like 3 thoughts, Ben corrected with a weak smile. Alien X has multiple personalities that have to agree on any action. Makes them kind of impractical for regular use. All Might approached All for One's containment field, studying his nemesis with a mixture of awe and relief. "In all our battles, I never managed what you just accomplished." "Don't get too excited," Ben cautioned. "That containment is temporary, maybe a few hours. We should get into whatever super prison you guys use ASAP." Pro-heroes and police forces were already streaming into the warehouse, securing villains and cataloging evidence. Onimo, stripped of his enhancements and looking suddenly old and frail, glared at Ben from his containment field. "This isn't over, Tennyson," the scientist spat. "The dimensional barriers have been weakened. Others will come, others who share my vision." "Save it for your cell, Onimo," Ben replied wearily. "I'm sure the prison psychiatrists will find your vision fascinating." As the cleanup operation continued, Yayorozu approached Ben with a scanner, her expression troubled. "Ben, the dimensional energy readings, they're unusual." "How so?" he asked, leaning over to see her device. "When you sealed the gateway, you didn't just close it, you created what appears to be a stable dimensional pocket." She pointed to readings that meant nothing to Ben. "It's as if there's now a buffer zone between our dimensions, more stable than before, but also, connected somehow." Ben frowned. "That might be Alien X's doing. Celestial Sapiens don't just patch problems, they rewrite the underlying rules to prevent recurrence." "Which means," she prompted. "Which means the connection between our dimensions might be stronger now, but also more regulated." He scratched his head. "Hard to explain, but think of it like installing a proper door where there used to be just a hole in the wall." Her eyes widened with understanding. A controlled pathway rather than a chaotic tear. Exactly. Ben's face lit up. Which might actually help with getting me home. The realization energized him. With the immediate crisis resolved, thoughts of returning to his own dimension resurfaced. Yet looking around at the UA students who had fought alongside him, Midoriya's determined expression, Todoroki's quiet strength, Bakugo's grudging respect, Yaoyorozu's brilliant mind, Ben felt an unexpected pang of regret. You know, he said to Yaoyorozu as they walked outside to where transport vehicles waited, for an accidental dimension hop, this turned out pretty okay. She smiled. Despite the multiple villain attacks, dimensional gateways, and mutant creatures. Hey, that's just a normal Tuesday for me, Ben replied with a grin. But usually I don't have such good backup. 3 days later, Ben stood on UA's roof, repaired now after the previous battle, surrounded by equipment that looked remarkably similar to what Anemo had built, though significantly safer and more stable. Hatsum darted between monitoring stations, making final adjustments with manic energy. The dimensional coordinates are locked, she announced excitedly. Thanks to Alien X's remodeling of the interdimensional pathways, we're getting a crystal clear signal from your home universe. Power Loader nodded in agreement. The quantum harmonics are perfectly aligned. If there was ever a time to attempt a return journey, it's now. Ben looked around at the gathered students and faculty, people who had become friends and allies in his short time in their world. Principal Nizu stepped forward, extending a paw. Young Tennyson, on behalf of UA High School and the hero community, I thank you for your invaluable assistance. You've helped us avert a catastrophe that threatened not just our world, but many others. Ben shook the principal's paw, surprisingly moved by the formal acknowledgement. I should be thanking you. If I'd landed anywhere else when Anemo's machine malfunctioned, things might have gone very differently. All Might approached next, still thin but standing tall. You've demonstrated what it truly means to be a hero, adapting to circumstances beyond your control and rising to challenges in an unfamiliar world. High praise coming from you, Ben replied with genuine respect. Your world's hero system is different from what I'm used to, but I've learned a lot from it. One by one, the UA students came forward to say goodbye. Midoriya presented Ben with a notebook. I made a copy of my analysis of your alien forms, he explained somewhat sheepishly. I thought you might find it interesting to see how someone else views your abilities. Ben accepted it with a grin. Thanks. I'll study it carefully, might learn something new about myself. Bakugo grudgingly extended a fist. Don't die in your dimension, alien boy. I still want that rematch someday. Wouldn't miss it, explosion boy, Ben replied, bumping Bakugo's fist. Uraraka hugged him impulsively. Take care of yourself, Ben. Ida offered a formal handshake and precise bow. It has been an honor to witness your heroic adaptability. Kirishima gave him a toothy grin and a thumbs up. Super manly working with you, dude. Todoroki simply nodded, though the gesture carried genuine respect. Your power is your own. Use it well. Finally, Yaoyorozu stepped forward, holding a small device. This is for you, she said, pressing it into his hand. It's a quantum-entangled communicator, calibrated to the stable dimensional pathway Alien X created. Ben looked at the sleek, compact device in surprise. You finished it. So we can theoretically maintain contact between dimensions, she confirmed with a smile. The range is limited and the connection may not always be stable, but, it's perfect, Ben interrupted, genuinely touched. Thank you. Hatsum's voice broke the moment. Portal stability optimal. Dimensional gateway activating in 30 seconds. The equipment hummed to life, energy building within a circular framework much like Anemo's but refined and improved. The air within the circle shimmered, then solidified into a swirling gateway showing a familiar landscape, Bellwood City Park, where Ben had been fighting Anemo before this whole adventure began. That's home, Ben confirmed, a mixture of excitement and nostalgia washing over him. And if I'm seeing this right, barely any time has passed there, maybe a few hours since I disappeared. Dimensional time differentials, Power Loader explained. Fascinating subject. 10 seconds to maximum stability. Hatsum called out. After that, you'll have a 1-minute window to cross safely. Ben took a final look at the gathered heroes, committing their faces to memory. I guess this is it. Thanks for everything, the hospitality, the backup, not locking me up as a dimensional invader. Midoriya stepped forward impulsively. Ben, if you ever need help in your dimension. I know who to call, Ben finished with a smile, holding up Yaoyorozu's communication device. And same goes for you guys. If you ever need an alien hero backup. Portal at maximum stability. Hatsum announced. 1-minute window starting, now. Ben activated the Omnitrix one last time in this dimension. XLR-8. His velociraptor-like form gave a final salute to the UA heroes. See you around, heroes. Plus Ultra, right? Plus Ultra, they responded in unison. With a blur of speed, Ben raced through the portal, the familiar sensation of dimensional transition washing over him. Behind him, the gateway collapsed in a flash of light, severing the direct connection between worlds. XLR-8 skidded to a stop in Bellwood Park, immediately scanning for threats. The area was quiet, with police cleaning up the last of Anamo's previous attack. In the distance, he could see Gwen and Kevin looking around frantically, searching for him, he realized. Ben transformed back to human form and jogged toward them. Gwen. Kevin. Ben. Gwen spun around, relief washing over her face. Where did you go? You've been missing for 3 hours. We thought Anamo's device, it's a long story, Ben interrupted with a smile, the quantum communicator secure in his pocket. Like, a really long story. Involving another dimension, superpowers called quirks, a school for heroes, and a villain who wanted to steal the Omnitrix to become a multiversal threat. Kevin raised an eyebrow. So. Tuesday, then. Ben laughed, the familiar banter washing over him like a comfort blanket. Yeah, pretty much. But I made some new friends. Actually, more than friends, fellow heroes. As they walked toward Kevin's car, Ben recounted his adventure in the My Hero Academia universe. Neither Gwen nor Kevin seemed entirely surprised, dimensional travel wasn't exactly new in their line of work, but they were impressed by the coordinated hero society he described. Sounds like they've got a good system, Gwen observed. Maybe the plumbers could learn something from it. Maybe, Ben agreed. But our way works too. Different dimensions, different approaches, both getting the job done. That night, as Ben lay in his own bed for the first time in what felt like weeks, he took out Yaoyorozu's communicator device. It hummed softly with quantum energy, maintaining its tenuous connection across dimensional barriers. On impulse, he activated it. Hey, UA heroes. Just checking in to let you know I made it home safe. Everything's quiet here, for now. But if that changes, well, heroes help each other, right? No matter what universe they're from. He set the device on his nightstand, not really expecting a response given the dimensional distance. But moments later, it glowed softly, and a familiar voice came through with surprising clarity. Message received, Ben. It was Midoriya, sounding distant but unmistakable. We're glad you made it home safely. Things are quiet here too, the League is lying low after all for one's capture. Another voice joined in, Yaoyorozu. The dimensional communicator is working better than expected. We should be able to maintain periodic contact. Ben smiled in the darkness of his room. Good to know. Because something tells me our worlds might need each other again someday. And when that day comes, Midoriya replied with determination in his voice, we'll be ready. Heroes from 2 dimensions, standing together. Couldn't have said it better myself, Ben agreed, a sense of contentment washing over him. As the communication ended, Ben glanced at the Omnitrix on his wrist. What had begun as an accidental dimensional journey had turned into something more, a bridge between worlds, a new alliance of heroes, and a reminder that no matter the universe, the heart of heroism remained the same, the willingness to stand up for others, to face impossible odds, and to go beyond one's limits. Plus Ultra, indeed. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.